Chapter 494. Divine weapons and sharp weapons reflected each other's brilliance, revealing their sharpness. It looked very shocking. Even Ling Xiao, who already had quite a few treasures, was dazzled by the number of treasures and weapons he had to deal with. No wonder so many martial artists yearned for divine weapons. With the same level of strength, once one had a good weapon, one's battle power would increase by a large margin. There wasn't a single common weapon here. Even the worst one was a common grade artifact or magic weapon. It was just that in the outside world, most martial artists like to refer to all weapons, defensive equipment, and auxiliary equipment as martial tools, and martial tools of the mortal grade and above as magic treasures. This was also to differentiate between ordinary weapons and weapons. It was not just a difference in name. Of course, since they were not ordinary, the price would not be cheap. Even though Ling Xiao could casually give away mortal grade and fine grade treasures, in reality, even the lowest mortal grade treasures were worth a lot. Ling Xiao took a look. The price of a mortal weapon was 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. These were low-grade spirit stones, not gold or silver. Among the secular sects, only a sect like the Divine Sword sect would have so many low-grade spirit stones. The other sects would not have so many low-grade spirit stones. Fine weapons were even more expensive. The price of one could reach tens of thousands of low-grade spirit stones. Among them, defensive weapons were the most expensive. They could only be bought with tens of thousands of low-grade spirit stones. The price of a treasure weapon was even more ridiculous. The price of one could reach hundreds of thousands or even millions of low-grade spirit stones. It was simply frightening. There's nothing good here. Let's go in and take a look. Heavenly Sovereign Golden Light was going all out for his disciple, Lang Hao. This could be considered as him trying his best to rope in Ling Xiao. He brought Ling Xiao into this place. All of the treasures were treasured weapons. None of them were below the level of treasured weapons. Unfortunately, Ling Xiao looked for a long time and did not find any immortal weapons. As expected, items of that level should have been divided up by the sect elders. It was impossible for them to be placed here as decorations. Ling Xiao casually glanced around. Not only did these treasures have price tags, they even had detailed introductions. It was truly considerate. The Northern Woods saber was forged from the treasured saber of the Northern Woods saber Venerable, a thunder attribute weapon, a rare grade artifact suitable for transcendent realm cultivators. It can increase the user's strength by 40% and has a 10% chance of causing double damage. It also has a thunder explosion effect. When used, it would produce some of the domineering aura of the Northern Woods Blade Venerable. The price is 39,800 low-grade spirit stones. Legend has it that the phoenix armor was forged from the feathers and bones of a bird-type beast with an ancient bloodline and some special metals. Its defense is astonishing, and it can increase the strength of one's protective Zhen Yuan by 40%. It also has the effect of raging flame protection and can reduce damage by 20%, but it consumes Zhen Yuan. The selling price is 1 million low-grade spirit stones. Dazzling Dragon Gold Brick is a hidden weapon artifact made from the bones of a fire attribute vicious beast. When it attacks, it can produce terrifying flames that can instantly kill a Transcendent Realm 6th layer cultivator. Any cultivator below the Transcendent Realm who is hit by this artifact will be severely injured. The price is 200,000 low-grade spirit stones. Ling Xiao looked at the introductions of these artifacts and couldn't help but feel that he had been really muddle-headed before. Although he had a rare grade artifact, he had never been able to truly exert its power. He had only been using it as a weapon. Therefore, the additional effects were only triggered randomly and were not deliberately controlled. No wonder his attacks would suddenly become much stronger. It turned out that this was the problem. Little fellow, the treasures here are all carefully selected by the sect. Generally, disciples with insufficient loyalty and contribution points don't have the qualifications to purchase them. Heavenly Venerable Golden Light introduced. The craftsmanship and materials used in each of them are very exquisite, as they are as close to perfection as possible, so the price is naturally much higher. Ordinary disciples can't afford them at all, but you can rest assured if you don't have enough spirit stones, this senior can lend you some. Ling Xiao smiled. He knew that Heavenly Venerable Golden Light had good intentions, but he could accept a discount, but not a loan. He still had quite a number of low-grade spirit stones. Previously, in the Dragon Submission Mountain Range, he had killed so many martial artists and obtained quite a number of spirit stones. In addition to those he had obtained from the Plague Demon King's Devil Cave and the Evil Beast Demon King's Devil Cave, the number of low-grade spirit stones was definitely over 1 million. But even if it was 1 million, it seemed like he could only buy one good item. But it didn't matter. Sect points could also replace spirit stones. Therefore, Ling Xiao's budget was still very ample. This time, Ling Xiao's original purpose of coming to the Divine Weapon Hall was to choose a few secret skill scrolls. However, after listening to Heavenly Venerable Golden Light's words, he changed his mind. He decided to gather all 12 types of treasured swords with the power of celestial phenomenon attributes. Otherwise, he would never be able to fully unleash his strength, and that would be too depressing. Attribute compatibility was a very important thing for a martial artist. Therefore, he couldn't be bothered to look at other things. Instead, he focused his attention on those sword-type weapons. Of course, if there weren't any sword-type weapons, he could also settle for the next best thing and choose other treasures with the corresponding attributes. Of course, it would be best if it was a weapon-type treasure, because this way, if he used the Mountain River martial spirit to condense it, the attributes would be completely transferred to the new weapon. Otherwise, many of the attributes would be wasted. However, his worries were completely unnecessary. Sabers, swords, spears, and bows. These 4 types of weapons were the most popular among weapon-type treasures. Therefore, there were many of them, and there was no need to worry about not being able to find them. Thunder Shadow Sword, treasure artifact level weapon. Thunder attribute. Can double the power of Thunder attribute True Qi and increase the speed of sword moves by 20%. It has the special skill Explosive Thunder Flash, which can instantly release explosive thunder to bombard the enemy. It can easily break through the defense of a 7th level Transcendent Realm Martial Artist, and is a huge threat to Transcendence. The price is 36,500 low-grade Spirit Stones. This is not bad. A Thunder Attribute Treasure Sword, and it has a special skill. Interesting. I'll take it. Ling Xiao casually picked up the Thunder Shadow Sword and put it aside for the time being. Raging Wind Sword, treasure artifact level weapon, wind attribute, can double the power of wind attribute True Qi and increase the speed of attack by 20%. It has the special skill Raging Wind Shuttle, which condenses the power of wind into a shuttle. It is extremely terrifying. The price is 294,300 low-grade Spirit Stones. This sword's price was slightly lower, but its attributes were also quite good, and it also had a special skill. He wanted it. Ling Xiao took the Raging Wind Sword and put it aside. Golden Light, Heavenly Master, wanted to say something, but after opening his mouth, he didn't say anything. Chapter 495. In fact, sect points were extremely precious. Usually, martial artists would use them to exchange for martial arts manuals or elixirs instead of weapons. Therefore, most people would use spiritual stones to buy weapons if they could. At most, they would add some sect points. That was because there was no other way. Ling Xiao didn't know what Heavenly Master Golden Light was thinking. He was just choosing according to his own ideas. After the ice attribute Drifting Snow Sword was modified, it should be able to be forged into a rain attribute sword. Therefore, he didn't need to choose anymore. After all, whether it was ice or rain, they were all water. It was just that there were some changes. The difficulty of modification would be relatively low. Now, all that was left was a lightning attributed sword. The Purple Flash Sword is a precious grade weapon. lightning attribute. It doubles the power of lightning attribute True Yuan and has a 20% chance of paralysis. It comes with a special skill, Purple Flash Shocks the World. It can temporarily upgrade the Purple Flash Sword to an immortal grade weapon. However, it needs to consume the Purple Flash Shocks the World secret technique scroll. It lasts for an hour. After each use, it needs to be maintained for an hour before it can be used again. Otherwise, the sword will definitely be destroyed. This sword is priced at 57,800 low-grade spiritual stones. The Purple Flash Shocks the World secret technique scroll is priced at 10,000 low-grade spiritual stones each. It can only be used with the Purple Flash sword. Wow, there's actually such a weapon. Ling Xiao couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. At the current stage, immortal grade weapons were extremely rare. Even in the entire Yuehua school, it was difficult to find more than a few. However, this Purple Flash sword could actually be upgraded to an immortal grade weapon temporarily. This was really amazing. Ling Xiao directly took down the Purple Flash sword. The sword was glowing with a purple light. When he infused the lightning attribute of the astronomical energy, he realized that the light was even brighter. The material should be the spine of a ferocious beast. In addition, there were some special alloys. He could even feel the aura of a ferocious beast. Little guy, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to this Purple Flash sword? Forget it. Heavenly Master Golden Light suddenly waved his hand. Why is that? Ling Xiao asked Golden Light, exalted celestial, in confusion. The Purple Flash sword is indeed outstanding, but its Purple Flash Shocks the World can only be used with a secret scroll. However, I can tell you honestly that our Yuehua school only has 2 secret scrolls for Purple Flash Shocks the World. This means that you can only use this special skill twice at most before it becomes useless. It's not worth it. Golden Light Heavenly Lord explained. Previously, many elders had their eyes on this purple lightning sword, but after considering it over and over again, they ultimately chose another one because among treasured artifacts of the same level, other special skills are more practical. No wonder no one wants to buy such a good item. Ling Xiao nodded his head, finally understanding. Although the secret technique scroll was a huge problem for others, it was not a problem for him. Based on the price of the Purple Lightning Shocking World Scroll, the difficulty of creating this scroll shouldn't be too high. If Luo Yunyang asked his Yuan Venerate Master for help, he would be able to create it himself. In that case, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to use it. Heavenly Venerate, I have already decided to buy these 3 swords. Furthermore, I also want the 2 secret scrolls for Purple Flash Shocks the World. Ling Xiao smiled at Heavenly Venerate Golden Light. You are always so unpredictable. Forget it. Since you have already made your decision, I won't say anything else. You just have to pay a total of 500,000 low-grade spirit stones for these 3 swords. Heavenly Venerate Golden Light didn't ask why Ling Xiao was so insistent on buying these 3 swords. In his opinion, Ling Xiao was full of secrets, so there wasn't much point in getting to the bottom of it. 500,000? Aren't you at a disadvantage then? How could I be at a disadvantage? This is basically the price after the discount. Furthermore, I will give you a little discount. Heavenly Venerate Golden Light chuckled. This isn't too good, Heavenly Venerate. Won't you be pursued by the sect? Is the sect going to punish this Heavenly Venerate for a mere treasure artifact? Besides, the first 2 swords were personally forged by this Heavenly Venerate. At worst, this Heavenly Venerate won't take a cut. Heavenly Venerate Golden Light said domineeringly. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Ling Xiao directly paid 500,000 low-grade spirit stones and placed the 3 swords into the mountain river world. After returning, he just needed to forge the drifting snow sword into a rain-attributed treasure sword. Then he would have all 4 swords of wind, thunder, rain, and lightning. Little guy, You should be able to easily obtain a spot for the moon arrival pagoda ascension ceremony, right? Heavenly Venerate Golden Light asked with a smile as he sent Ling Xiao out of the divine weapon hall. Probably. Ling Xiao was very confident about this. Lung Hao should also be participating, right? Of course, after all, the number of spots this time has been expanded to 50, and Lung Hao's cultivation has already reached the peak of the transcendent fourth layer, so it will be relatively easy for him to obtain a spot. However, the pagoda ascension ceremony is not so simple. In order to obtain certain opportunities, in addition to luck, the most important thing is strength and intelligence. Heavenly Venerate Golden Light sighed. For nearly 1,000 years, the pagoda ascension ceremony has been held every year. Although there are relatively few people participating, there will still be at least 1 or 2 people every year. However, those who can really obtain greater benefits are few and far between. Is it really that difficult? Yes, Sect Master Chang Yueying and the Flame Deity are the 2 people who have obtained the greatest benefits in the past 1,000 years. It is also because of this that the Flame Deity has always been regarded as the only successor to the position of Sect Master. This is also why most of the sect's upper echelons support him. Exalted Celestial Master Golden Light nodded and said, after entering the Moonlight Pagoda, the opportunities obtained are different, but the most powerful is naturally the martial spirit inheritance. The rest, such as martial arts manuals and divine weapons, are secondary. The Sect Master and Exalted Celestial Master Demonic Flame obtain the martial spirit inheritance. Otherwise, they would not have achieved what they have today. So that's how it is. Ling Xiao smiled. He didn't care much about martial spirit inheritances. After all, the mountain river martial spirit in his body was the strongest martial spirit. What he wanted to participate in the pagoda ascension ceremony this time was a higher level martial skill. After all, the strongest martial skill the Yuehua school could provide to the disciples was probably a gold grade martial skill. There might not be any higher level martial skills. After all, jade grade martial skills were too precious. Even if he wanted to teach them, he must prove that the disciple was very loyal. In addition, he also needed a large number of dragon race martial skills. After all, until now he only had a set of finger techniques which was too weak. The reason he didn't want to transform into the ancient golden dragon form, besides not wanting others to know, was actually related to his lack of combat skills. After bidding farewell to Heavenly Venerate Golden Light, Ling Xiao prepared to return to the cave to condense the drifting snow sword. Unexpectedly, he met someone on the way. It was a very unfamiliar face. However, Ling Xiao vaguely remembered his name. It seemed to be Xin Tianlin. Chapter 496. When Ling Xiao met Xin Tianlin, who blocked his way before, this person was the strongest disciple below the 10 core disciples. He was stronger than Zhan Lu, Taishan, Wuyang, and Qin Wu. But why was he blocking Ling Xiao's way today? Ling Xiao. Xin Tianlin looked at Ling Xiao and said arrogantly, I have already worshipped the Flame Deity as my master and will be participating in the pagoda ascension ceremony this time. When the time comes, I will naturally compete with you. Is that so? Since you're done talking, can you get out of the way? Ling Xiao looked at Xin Tianlin and said. Today he was not afraid of Shen Tianlin, although he had killed Wang Shi by using the all-evil beast Demon King's all-evil beast soul spear. However, now that he had 4 swords that matched his inner 4 secret art, his combat strength had improved significantly, so he should be able to deal with Xin Tianlin. Of course, Yang Kai could not rule out the possibility that Shen Tianlin had recently broken through and obtained benefits from Elder Jean or the Flame Deity. But even so, he was still not afraid of Xin Tianlin. Competing with him? That was simply looking for a beating. What kind of attitude is this? Is this how you talk to your senior brother? Xin Tianlin was angry. He had never felt that he was worse than anyone. This time, after becoming Heavenly Venerable Demon Flame's disciple and receiving guidance from Elder Jean, His cultivation had broken through to the 8th layer of the transcendent realm, and he had successfully become the 10th-ranked core disciple. After He Sua's death, Meng Yuan, who was originally ranked 10th, received the full support of Elder Jean and was now at the peak of the transcendent 8th layer. On top of that, he had consecutively defeated the 9th and 8th core disciple and replaced the 8th position. Of course, one of the 10 core disciples had also been eliminated. This was the competition between sects. If your strength was not good enough, you would not be able to maintain your position. Even if you were stronger than others now, it was difficult to guarantee that you would be stronger in the future. So you must not slack off in the slightest and must continue to cultivate and improve your strength. Shen Tianlin received the task given to him by Elder Jean, which was to kill Ling Xiao in the Moonlight Pagoda. Originally, he disdained to accept this mission. However, in order to consolidate his position, he still chose to help the tyrant. He became the flame deity's disciple. Senior brother, do you think you're worthy of helping the tyrant? Ling Xiao glanced at Shen Tianlin and was about to leave. Now was not the time to argue with others. The Tower Ascension ceremony was about to begin. He still had some things to finish, including the refining of the Rain Attribute Sword and the production of the Purple Lightning Shocks the World secret technique scroll. All of this would take time. Whoosh! Shen Tianlin pulled out his long saber and drew a line on the ground. He said coldly, "If you dare to cross this line today, I will kill you." In fact, he did not dare to kill Ling Xiao so openly. He just wanted to scare Ling Xiao. After all, he was the senior brother, and there were so many disciples around, so he had to give face. Humph! Unexpectedly, Ling Xiao just snorted and crossed the line without hesitation. Shen Tianlin's head turned hot in an instant. His face turned red, and the long saber in his hand slashed toward Ling Xiao without hesitation. However, at that moment, the long saber stopped in midair. Bastard! You dare to disobey the orders of Her Highness Moon Maiden? The one who stopped Shen Tianlin was Lan Yu, did not know Ling Xiao's current strength, so she was worried that Ling Xiao would be hurt, so she stopped him. Ling Xiao, if you are a man, don't hide behind a woman. Shen Tianlin roared angrily. A cat or a dog wants to challenge me. Do I have to accompany them? You should be a seated player who got a spot. Let's meet in the Moonlight Pagoda. I don't mind killing a dog. After saying that, he looked at Lan Yu and smiled. Senior sister, I was just looking for you. This time I went out and got a lot of good things. This is for you. Dai Yuling, Zhao Ji, and Shangguan Lei all got gifts, so Lan Yu was no exception. This is an Earth Spirit Stone. When Lan Yu saw the thing in Ling Xiao's hand, her eyes turned green. It was like a big pervert who saw a beauty. Yes, I was lucky to get a few pieces. This is for Senior Sister Lan. I hope Senior Sister Lan can break through to the celestial realm as soon as possible. Don't let the flame deity continue to be arrogant. Ling Xiao said with a smile, but such a precious thing, how can I take it for free? Lan Yu wanted it very much, but she was embarrassed. By the way, Ling Xiao, I went out to practice before and found a few phoenix feathers. I heard that they can be used to arrange arrays. I don't know if it's true, but I'll give it to you. My stupid sister, you're simply wasting such a precious thing. You want to use the phoenix feathers to arrange arrays? When Ling Xiao saw the phoenix feathers in Lan Yu's hand, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This thing was too precious. It should be said that it was too precious to him. The phoenix feathers had too many uses. In addition to arranging arrays, it could also be used to condense fire attribute magical treasures and make flying or attacking secret scrolls. In addition, it could also be used to improve fire attribute or bird-type martial souls. It could be used to speed up the cultivation of fire attribute cultivation techniques. It could improve the cultivation of fire attribute true essence. Of course, more importantly, it had a powerful phoenix flame. It was definitely better than most flames when used to refine elixirs and a raise. It was second only to the 12 sacred flames. "Senior sister, this thing of yours is precious. I'll just take one. You can keep the rest." Ling Xiao didn't want to take advantage of Lan Yu. After all, this senior sister had helped him a lot. He couldn't be so wicked. "No, you can take all of them. There are only 3 in total. Anyway, it's meaningless for me to keep them. I might as well give them to you." Lan Yu shook her head. Her attitude was very firm. When Ling Xiao saw this, he simply took out 2 pieces of Earth Spirit Raw Stones and handed them to Lan Yu. "Senior sister, I can't let you suffer a loss. I'll give you 2 more Earth Spirit Raw Stones. Don't refuse. If you refuse, I don't want the phoenix feathers." Okay, that's it." Lan Yu gladly accepted. She didn't care how precious the phoenix feathers were. No matter how precious it was, it didn't help her cultivation at all. Therefore, it was meaningless. "Senior sister, I still have something to do. I can't accompany you." "Okay, then you can go." Shen Tianlin, who was next to them, watched Ling Xiao leave. He was so angry that his teeth itched, but there was nothing he could do. Listening to the whispers of the surrounding disciples, he really wanted to find a hole to hide in. Ling Xiao did not care whether his face was bright or not. After returning to the Immortal's cave, Ling Xiao began to condense a new treasure sword. He used the rain celestial phenomenon to create a rainstorm in the mountain river world. Then he let his martial soul avatar be in the rainstorm and changed the attributes of the drifting snow sword. Chapter 497. After repeated tempering, finally the originally silver-white, drifting snow sword turned into a treasured sword that was as clear as water. Ling Xiao named it Overflow Rain Sword. After the transformation, the attributes of this sword had changed, and its function had also changed. Overflow Rain Sword, a treasure-grade weapon. Rain attribute. Can double the power of rain attribute True Yuan. When used, can increase corrosive damage by 20%. This effect lasts for a long time, unless the user is healed. Has the special skill Corrosive Rain Sword, which can damage enemies in a large area and create a strong corrosive effect. The stronger the sword owner is, the stronger the corrosive effect. The process of condensing the Overflow Rain Sword was not easy. Ling Xiao had originally planned to finish it in 1 day, but it had taken him 2 days to complete it. However, he had succeeded in the end, which made him look forward to it a little more. He had originally planned to learn the purple lightning shocking the world from the Yuan Venerate, but now he could only put that on hold. Because the Moon Arrival Festival was approaching, the competition for the slots for the Pagoda Ascension ceremony would begin today. In addition to the 10 seeded contestants, there were still 40 slots to be decided among the many disciples. These 10 seeded contestants were basically disciples of various intersect elders. Of course, their cultivation bases were not weak either. They were basically at least at the 7th level of the Transcendent Realm. 2 of them were even core disciples, including Shen Tianlin. Of course, there was also Li Zonghao, who had just been squeezed out of the core disciples. This person was also one of the seeded contestants. Although he had been squeezed out of the top 10 core disciples, he was still the strongest person below the top 10 core disciples. After leaving the cave abode, Ling Xiao looked at the sky. It was early in the morning, so it seemed like he had calculated the time quite accurately. He walked quickly to the inner sect plaza. After all, most of the disciples competing for the 40 slots included the majority of the inner sect disciples and all the outer sect disciples. Everyone wanted to try their luck. They wouldn't die anyway. Therefore, an ordinary venue would definitely not work. The inner sect plaza would be large enough. Ling Xiao hadn't arrived yet, but many people had already gathered in the plaza. Along the way, there were many moon-shaped colored lanterns, couplets, banners, and so on. This symbolized that the Moon Arrival Festival had arrived. The Moonlight Pagoda stood there, still as mysterious and frightening as ever. What exactly was inside the pagoda that stretched as far as the eye could see? This had always been something that Ling Xiao had been perplexed about. This was an excellent opportunity, and he naturally wouldn't miss it. Not long after, Ling Xiao also arrived at the square and joined up with Xiao Ji, Dai Yuling, and Shangguan Lei. At this moment, he noticed that the faint blue moonlight on the Moonlight Pagoda had become even more obvious, as if it was draped with a mysterious veil. The Moon Arrival Festival was held annually. The Tower Ascension ceremony was also held once a year. However, every martial artist only had 3 chances. Therefore, for the warriors who came this time, this opportunity was very rare. One less opportunity meant one less opportunity for a carp to leap over the dragon gate. Senior Brotherling, you're the strongest in our outer sect. Do your best to bring glory to our outer sect. We'll cheer for you. Although there were also a large number of outer sect disciples who signed up for the competition. These people were probably only in the first round, so it was basically impossible for them to get a spot. The only one with a chance was naturally the unfathomable Ling Xiao. Don't worry, with Senior Brotherling's strength, it's a cinch. Zhao Ji said confidently. Zhao Ci couldn't help frowning when she heard this. She had always looked down on Ling Xiao, always thinking that Ling Xiao was too arrogant and his methods were too ruthless. Especially when Ling Xiao killed her fellow sect members one after another. Her saintly heart was completely enraged. Since then, she had never spoken to Ling Xiao again. However, since she was so arrogant, Ling Xiao didn't bother to pay attention to her. Dai Yuling had now broken through to the 3rd layer of the Transcendent Realm with Ling Xiao's help. Zhao Ji was also at the peak of the 2nd layer of the Transcendent Realm. Shangguan Lei's cultivation wasn't low, and he was now at the peak of the 4th layer of the Transcendent Realm. On the other hand, Zhao Ci was still at the late 1st layer of the Transcendent Realm, her cultivation speed as slow as a snail. In fact, Zhao Ji had secretly tried to persuade his sister, but he was helpless. His sister had been spoiled since childhood, always thinking that everything had to be done according to her wishes. Zhao Ji was too lazy to care about it now. As the few of them talked, more and more people gathered in the square. Even the core disciples who weren't participating in the quota competition had arrived one by one. The reason they came was naturally very simple, because the people who won the quota might be their strong competitors in the future, so it was better to observe more here. Except for some disciples who couldn't make it back in time or who were on secret missions or guarding the mountain gate. Basically, all the disciples of Yuehua School had gathered in the inner sect square. After all, this was one of the Yuehua School's grandest ceremonies. Let's go and say hello to Senior Sister Lan. Ling Xiao said to Dai Yuling. She's not my senior sister, she's my master. Dai Yuling smiled bitterly, but she didn't slow down. After Shangguan Lei greeted Ling Xiao, he stood behind Meng Yuan. After all, on the surface, he was still one of Meng Yuan's people. As for Zhao Ji, he stood in the same place. He wanted to be Ling Xiao's friend, not a follower. He wouldn't follow behind Ling Xiao. After all, he still had the dignity of a prince. Besides, he wasn't familiar with Lan Yu. It wouldn't be good if she hated him. TSK Tisk, I'm really envious. Look at that Ling Xiao, he can be so close to Lan Yu, who is ranked 2nd among the top 10 core disciples. There's no other way he's in the limelight now. Yeah, it's said that even Her Highness the Moon Maiden wants to accept him as her disciple. TSK, don't talk nonsense, how is that possible? Yes, Her Highness the Moon Maiden is just joking. Do you really think that Ling Xiao can get 1st place in the Tower Ascension ceremony with his strength? That's true. Poor Ling Xiao, he was completely played. I wonder how the people who said these words would feel when they learned that Ling Xiao and the Moon Maiden lived together intimately in the 1,000 Ghost Forest. Ling Xiao didn't care about those people's comments at all. From the Ling family to the latent dragon camp, there were many people who talked about him. Now those people were just passers-by. However, he had become a popular disciple in the Yuehua School. He even had the qualification to challenge the core disciples. This was a real improvement. Senior Sister Lan. Unfortunately, I will also be participating in the Tower Ascension ceremony this time. When I meet this little brother, do you think I should treat him well? Among the top 10 core disciples, there was a seductive woman named Tantai Lingzi. She was currently ranked 6th among the top 10 core disciples, higher than Meng Yuan. If she wanted to make things difficult for Ling Xiao, then Ling Xiao would really be in trouble. If you dare to hurt him, I will kill you, Lan Yu said coldly. Chapter 498. Ling Xiao looked at Tantai Lingzi with a smile. He didn't quite understand why this woman seemed to have malicious intentions towards him. However, since the other party had already threatened him, he naturally wouldn't be afraid. Even if it wasn't Lo, with his current strength, it would be harder for the other party to kill him than to reach the heavens. She wasn't a heaven realm expert, so why was she pretending? The rules of the Tower Ascension ceremonies qualifiers were very simple. They would draw lots to fight. Those who lost 3 times in a row would be eliminated, and the rest would advance until there were only 40 people left. The rules were very simple and clear. They just had to keep winning. Even if they lost, they couldn't lose more than 3 times. Ling Xiao liked this rule the most. It saved him a lot of trouble. After all, it was just a qualifier. It didn't make much sense to make it too complicated. Soon, most of the higher-ups of Yuehua School gathered in the square. The entire square of the inner sect was supported by a spirit array. After all, the inner sect disciples were all above the transcendent realm. Their destructive power wasn't small. Of course, the spirit array on the battle stage was even stronger. As long as their cultivation didn't exceed the half-step heavenly venerable realm, it was impossible to destroy the battle stage. There were a total of 20 battle stages in the inner sect square. 20 battles could start at the same time. In fact, this wasn't considered slow because the cultivators drawn at the beginning might have a big gap in strength between the two sides. The battle might end in a moment. As time passed, the strength of the disciples would be closer, and the battle would take longer. Ling Xiao felt that it was unlikely to encounter a strong opponent at the beginning. Although it was said to be a draw, it was easy for the higher-ups to change the lineup at the last minute. These higher-ups definitely wouldn't allow a strong battle to occur at the beginning. There were many higher-ups here today. Ling Xiao had seen and not seen all of them before, including the sect master, Chang Yueying. However, he didn't see the Moon Maiden. Thinking about it, the Moon Maiden was the most mysterious existence in Yuehua School. She had to be a little mysterious. The Supreme Sect Master has arrived. Suddenly, the sky changed color. In the inner sect square, a gust of wind blew. Between heaven and earth, the fluctuations of spirit chi became turbulent. A white-haired old woman appeared with the help of a girl. Although she walked very slowly, she didn't have any imposing manner. However, the truly powerful martial artists could feel that her entire being seemed to have merged with the surrounding heaven and earth. What a terrifying cultivation! Although they were weaker than the Moon Girls, they were stronger than the rest of the Yuehua School students. He should be a Grotto Heaven realm expert. Master! When Lan Yu saw the old woman, she ran over excitedly. So she was Senior Sister Lan's teacher. He didn't expect her to be the grand headmaster of Yuehua School. She should be the previous headmaster. Ling Xiao thought to himself. What made him sigh with emotion was that this Yuehua School was indeed a school founded by women. The 3 strongest people in the school were actually women. Moon Maiden, Supreme Sect Master Chang Yueying. Although the old woman looked old, the strange thing was that there were no wrinkles on her face. Her hands were also very bright. Only the silver hair on her head showed her age. Welcome, Supreme Sect Master. Chang Yueying stood up and saluted the Supreme Sect Master with the rest of the higher-ups. You're welcome, you're welcome. All of you sit down. I'm just an old woman who has retired to the second line. I'm here today to see the performance of my second disciple. The Supreme Sect Master's original name was Chang Yueli. In her life, she only took in 3 disciples. The eldest disciple was Chang Yueying, the current headmaster. The youngest disciple was Lan Yu, who was seen as a strong competitor for the next headmaster. The second disciple's name was Bai Feifei. This girl was said to be the flame deity's adopted daughter. This made Ling Xiao think of a person. That person was Master Bai Yun's daughter. Master Bai Yun had his daughter at an old age. However, on the day of his daughter's birth, his wife was killed and his daughter was taken away. Now, it was confirmed that this matter was done by the flame deity. Master Bai Yun and the flame deity both had the surname Bai and belonged to the same family. This girl also had the surname Bai and was the flame deity's adopted daughter. From this, it could be seen that Ling Xiao's guess was most likely correct. On the surface, Bai Feifei's cultivation seemed to be at the early transcendent realm 3rd layer, but Ling Xiao noticed that she should have cultivated a secret martial art that could hide her cultivation. Her actual cultivation had reached the half-step Empyrean realm, even higher than Lan Yu's. Terrifying aptitude. She might be older than Lan Yu, but she was only about 20 years old. It was amazing that she could cultivate to the half-step Empyrean realm. However, thinking about it, it was normal. To be accepted as a disciple by the Supreme Sect Master, how could her aptitude not be good? Bai Feifei had been cultivating with Chang Yueli and had never participated in the sect's ranking competition, so she was not a true disciple. This time, Chang Yueli did not let her enter the seated contestants. Presumably, she wanted to let him, the second disciple of the Divine Palace, show his strength publicly. As for the deeper purpose, it was unknown. Of course, Ling Xiao was too lazy to delve into it. In any case, he had only promised to help Master Bai Yun find his daughter. Now that he saw Bai Feifei was fine and living such a comfortable life, Master Bai Yun must be very happy. Lung Hao, who was standing behind heavenly venerable golden light, also turned his gaze to Bai Feifei, a trace of worry on his face. In fact, his cultivation speed could already be regarded as terrifying. He was definitely a genius among geniuses. His current cultivation was only at the early transcendent realm 4th layer, so the rumors among the disciples could not be completely believed. The flame deity still did not appear, but Meng Yuan, Ming Tian, and Xin Tianlin had all arrived. The 3 of them stood behind Elder Jean. Obviously, while the flame deity was recuperating, Elder Jean had completely become their backer. Ming Tian's cultivation was even more terrifying than Lung Hao's. After all, his cultivation was originally higher than Lung Hao and Ling Xiao's. Now he was already at the early transcendent realm 5th layer. This kind of cultivation speed was extremely rare. However, facing these 2 so-called geniuses, Ling Xiao just smiled faintly. Thinking back, his goal was to surpass Ming Tian, but now his cultivation had easily surpassed Ming Tian's. Of course, for geniuses like Ming Tian and Lung Hao, cultivation did not represent strength. Even if they encountered an opponent 1 realm higher than them, they could still easily win. But even so, they were still left behind by Ling Xiao. Now, Ling Xiao's goal had become the flame deity. If he surpassed the flame deity, he didn't believe that the Yuehua school wouldn't treat him like a treasure. When the time came, he wouldn't have to worry about the flame deity seeking revenge. Ling Xiao, are you confident you can defeat Ming Tian? Dai Yuling asked. Ming Tian. Ling Xiao didn't answer and just smiled faintly. There were too many geniuses. Even though Ming Tian was very outstanding, Bai Feifei, Lan Yu, Ren Xingtian Yurin, Tantai Lingzi, and Meng Yuan were not inferior to him. Ming Tian was only one of them. Chapter 499. What Ling Xiao should pay more attention to now was Tantai Lingzi, who had an inexplicable hostility towards him, and Xin Tianlin, who had just become the flame deity's disciple. These 2 people's cultivations were higher, so they were not easy to deal with. And this time, both of them were going to participate in the pagoda ascension ceremony. although they were seated contestants and would not encounter each other now. Once they entered the Moonlight Pagoda, a fight was inevitable. Today is the first day of the Moon Advent Festival. The annual Pagoda Ascension ceremony is about to begin. Today is the competition for the spots in the Pagoda Ascension ceremony. Since the contestants have arrived, the competition will begin now. The one who spoke was the Inner Hall Master, Heavenly Eye. Ling Xiao had never seen this person before. Now that he saw him today, he felt that this person's appearance was very different from ordinary people. He actually had a vertical eye in between his eyebrows. It was said that his martial soul caused some changes in his body, but whether it was true or not was unknown. After Heavenly Eye announced the start of the qualification competition, everyone went to draw lots. Junior brotherling, remember, if you meet my senior sister, immediately declare your surrender. A half-step Heavenly Venerable is not someone you can provoke. Moreover, my senior sister's personality is very similar to the flame deities. She is very cruel and vicious. She relies on her master's favor. Even if she kills you on the spot, no one will dare to say anything. Lan Yu reminded Ling Xiao before the competition began. I know, senior sister. Ling Xiao naturally knew that Lan Yu was doing it for his own good. He was not the kind of person who flaunted his superiority. Anyway, as long as he obtained the qualifications, it was fine. It was not like he had to take first place now. A real man knew when to yield and when to stand tall. Facing an undefeatable enemy and forcing oneself to fight was simply the most foolish decision. After the drawing of lots, the competition began. At the beginning, as many people expected, the gap between the two sides was relatively large, so the battle ended very quickly. Basically, the outcome was decided in one move. Some people even won without a fight. It was not until there were only about 100 people left that the competition gradually slowed down. At this time, the competition had truly entered the white-hot stage. If one was not careful, one might be directly eliminated. From the beginning until now, Ling Xiao had not lost a single time. Moreover, all of his opponents were defeated in one move. However, because the opponents were too weak, they couldn't see anything, so they didn't pay much attention to them. After all, Ming Tian, Leng Hao, Bai Feifei, Wu Yang, and Qin Wu had also won using the same method. Ling Xiao was one of the less eye-catching ones among them. The battle continued. Soon, it was Northern Han's princess, Zhao Xi's turn. Zhao Xi had already lost 2 matches in the previous matches. One was against her brother, Zhao Ji, and the other was against Dai Yuling. This was also because she was lucky that she did not meet someone stronger. Otherwise, she would be even more depressed. Therefore, this battle was extremely important to him. Ling Xiao had just finished his battle and was bored, so he stood below the stage and watched. Zhao Xi's opponent this time was the Swordsman King. The Swordsman King had once been defeated by Ling Xiao and was almost killed by Ling Xiao. Now that he had survived, his strength had not regressed, but unfortunately, he had not made any progress. Even so, he was still a second-layer Transcendent Realm cultivator. Zhao Xi's defeat was very simple. The Swordsman King showed no mercy. The most ridiculous thing was that Zhao Xi had once been very dissatisfied with Ling Xiao for injuring the Swordsman King, but today she had been injured by the Swordsman King to the point that her clothes were in tatters. It was simply a feast for the eyes of the disciples below the stage. Ling Xiao couldn't help but sigh. After this lesson, this woman should understand the dangers of the world, right? After 3 defeats, Zhao Xi regretfully was eliminated. In the end, she lost in a very humiliating manner. Fortunately, her brother Zhao Ji gave her some clothes to wear and let her cry on his shoulder. Otherwise, she would have been too ashamed to show her face. The next match Ling Xiao watched was Ming Tian's battle. Ming Tian's opponent was an early 6th layer Transcendent Realm inner disciple. In terms of cultivation, this inner disciple was stronger than Ming Tian. Therefore, as soon as he stepped onto the stage, he confidently took the initiative to attack. However, before his attack, could reach Ming Tian, he was heavily injured. His body was sent flying, and he fell off the stage. What happened just now? The crowd below the stage was surprised, because the disciples with lower cultivation and poor eyesight had no idea what had just happened on the stage. TSK, this guy's use of the nine-tailed ninja spirit has become even more skillful. He even combined it with the Yuehua School's internal force cultivation method, truly amazing. Ling Xiao couldn't help but praise. It had to be said, if it weren't for him encountering a freak like him, Ming Tian would really be regarded as the #1 genius under Grandmaster Baiyun. Unfortunately, with Ling Xiao here, this treacherous Ming Tian who betrayed his master and betrayed his ancestors would eventually meet a tragic end. I think I saw a red light just now. I noticed it too. It's really terrifying. He defeated a cultivator whose cultivation is 1 level higher than his so easily. This guy will probably become the biggest competitor for us core disciples. Tantai Lingzi looked at Lan Yu and smiled. He's better than the junior brother you like. Lan Yu ignored her and just smiled faintly. She didn't know how strong Ling Xiao was, but she was sure that Ling Xiao wasn't weaker than Ming Tian. This was a woman's intuition and trust. Ling Xiao couldn't help but yawn. He was busy condensing the overflow rain sword last night and was a little tired now. However, his yawn was a little too loud, and the higher-ups on the stage heard it. Ling Xiao, what are you doing? Do you think you're stronger than Ming Tian? Elder Jean asked in a very displeased tone. Elder Jean, please forgive me. I just didn't sleep well last night. I didn't want to do anything. Of course. It's true that I'm stronger than Ming Tian. Ling Xiao said to Elder Jean with a smile. There was nothing he couldn't admit. He believed that the news of him killing Wang Shi in the Sha family castle would spread to the Yuehua School sooner or later. There was no point in hiding it. Good boy, you're bold enough. I like it. Golden Ray, Heavenly Master laughed. Golden Ray, what do you mean? Elder Jean said unhappily. Elder Jean, the little guy just yawned. Why are you so calculative? The competition is still going on. Golden Ray, Heavenly Master, smiled faintly. Ling Xiao, you probably don't know that Ming Tian's internal strength mental cultivation method is the top gold grade martial art, lava technique. He can only master it with his 9-tailed ninja. This is a horrifying cultivation method that even core disciples can't master. Do you really think you can do it? Elder Jean snorted coldly. Of course not. Elder Jean was very satisfied with Ling Xiao's words, but he didn't expect Ling Xiao to not finish a sentence. Chapter 500. Ming Tian's aptitude is top-notch. So what if we make an exception? If you had his aptitude, the sect would make an exception for you too. Elder Jean said loudly. Aptitude? I wonder what Elder Jin's so-called aptitude is. When Ming Tian was in the secular world, his cultivation was much higher than mine, but now his cultivation is lower than mine. You say his aptitude is better than mine? Isn't that the biggest joke in the world? Ling Xiao laughed disdainfully. Enough, stop talking. Today's competition is not a bickering competition. The sect master, who is also the noblest grand elder in Yuehua School, Chang Yueli sneered. Little guy, this old woman's words are correct, right? The sect master's words are naturally correct. Ling Xiao cupped his fists and said, this person was Lan Yuer's master. So Ling Xiao didn't want to have a conflict with him. Since he didn't say anything, Elder Jean, as an elder, naturally couldn't continue to insist. The competition was still going on in an orderly manner. Zhao Ji won with difficulty. He only had 1 loss so far, which could only be attributed to good luck. It was hard to say what would happen next. Dai Yuling also had a hard time winning. The key was that she encountered a relatively strong opponent, a peak transcendent realm 3rd layer cultivator. In any case, she won with her powerful martial spirit. She hadn't tasted defeat yet. After all, the opponents she encountered so far were relatively weak. However, the situation these two would face would only get worse and worse. She only hoped that they wouldn't lose 3 times. Otherwise, they would be eliminated. Shangguan Lei's situation was similar. Although he hadn't tasted defeat yet, his situation was very serious. Bai Feifei, Leng Hao Wuyang, and Qin Wu won relatively easily, especially Bai Feifei. Basically, all her opponents directly admitted defeat and won without a fight. Besides the fact that she was the adopted daughter of Heavenly Exalt Demon Flame and the disciple of the sect master, most importantly, she'd crippled an outer court disciple on her first attack. So, how could anyone dare to fight her after this? The sect master said in a dignified manner that Bai Feifei rarely accepted such a competition, so she didn't hold back and didn't do it on purpose. But Ling Xiao clearly found out that she did it on purpose. He now understood why the flame deity was so proud of himself. He had raised Grandmaster Baiyun's daughter into such a cruel and vicious woman. This was a huge blow to Grandmaster Baiyun. After watching the other battles for a while, it was finally Ling Xiao's turn again. Coincidentally, his opponent was the early Transcendent Realm Inner disciple who had just lost to Ming Tian. Ling Xiao smiled and leaped onto the stage. Although he didn't look gorgeous, he looked calm and relaxed. It was obvious that he had cultivated his movement technique to the point of perfection. Among the inner sect disciples, there were very few 7th layer and 6th layer Transcendent Realm cultivators, no more than 10 of them in total. Ling Xiao meeting one was really bad luck. At the very least, compared to Zhao Ji, Dai Yuling, and Shangguan Lei, he was rather terrible. Ling Xiao just stood there and looked at his opponent indifferently before cupping his fists and saying, "Senior brother, please show me your skills." "Humph, you seem to be looking down on me. Don't think that just because I lost to Ming Tian, I will lose to you." The inner sect disciple coldly snorted. "Ming Tian is a genius disciple, you're not." As he spoke these words viciously, the true qi in his body continued to condense. "Oh, is that so? He's a genius, I'm not?" Ling Xiao grinned. "He defeated you in 1 move. So even if I didn't make a move, you would still lose." "Nonsense, don't try to scare me." How could the inner sect disciple believe Ling Xiao's nonsense? He suddenly condensed his true qi, brandished a saber, and rushed towards Ling Xiao. Mountain-shattering saber art, mountain-splitting strength. Ling Xiao still stood there, not moving. The inner sect disciple was surprised. He didn't think that Ling Xiao was the kind of idiot who wouldn't make a move. There was definitely a conspiracy here. But what was the conspiracy? He didn't know. The saber art had already been used, and it was impossible to withdraw it. He simply gritted his teeth and chopped down with his saber. "Fall!" Ling Xiao's eyes were smiling as he softly uttered a word. As soon as he finished speaking, the inner sect disciple was already lying on the ground, as if something had grabbed him and he couldn't move. You actually used demonic arts." The inner sect disciple cried out in shock. "Idiot, still not admitting defeat? That's because he used the array formation of the battle stage." "What demonic arts?" The one who spoke was the array formation hall master. She was surprised to find that the array formation of the battle stage, where Ling Xiao was, that had already been controlled by Ling Xiao. This array formation originally had a heavy pressure effect. The purpose was to restrain some disciples who suddenly went crazy. She didn't expect Ling Xiao to actually use this. Was this considered a move? It didn't seem to be. This time, even the Grand Sect Master was surprised. She wasn't afraid of how strong Ling Xiao was. Anyway, no matter how strong he was, he couldn't be compared to her disciples, let alone her. However, this kid was actually able to control the array formation of the battle stage in such a short time. This was too terrifying. "I admit defeat." The inner sect disciple's face was red, but there was nothing he could do. He was lying there and couldn't stand up. Therefore, he could only admit defeat. Unfortunately, after admitting defeat, he had lost 3 times and could only be eliminated. He was really unlucky to have met by Fei Fei, Ming Tian, and Ling Xiao one after another. Originally, he thought that losing to Bai Fei Fei was normal and that he should be confident in dealing with Ming Tian and Ling Xiao, who knew that he would lose more and more miserably in the last round. There was already a shocking discussion in the audience. Many people were discussing how terrifying Ling Xiao was. When fighting with this kid, I have to be careful of his array formation in the future. It's too hard to guard against it. Xin Tianlin secretly reminded himself. He really didn't need to use one move to defeat the inner sect disciple. Although it was a trick, it's really powerful. If Ming Tian is a genius, he should be considered a genius. Sect Master Chang Yueying secretly nodded. This kid hasn't used any moves until now. In the previous battles, he used ordinary attacks to defeat his opponents. Now that he's met a strong opponent, he changed to an array formation. Doesn't he plan to expose his martial arts? Even Bai Fei Fei, who originally disdained Ling Xiao, was a little concerned about Ling Xiao now. But if it were me, I definitely wouldn't fall for his trick. Ling Xiao glanced at Bai Fei Fei and couldn't help but secretly smile. This woman was indeed powerful. However, if he could borrow the battle stage's array formation, it wasn't impossible to deal with her. In fact, he used the array formation to deal with the inner sect disciple just now. The battle stage's array formation had many other functions. More importantly, there were half-step heavenly venerables protecting the array formation with all their might. In other words, he might even be able to borrow the power of these half-step heavenly venerables to deal with Bai Fei Fei. Although his strength was inferior to the opponent, it didn't mean that he couldn't win. Ever since the trip to the Dragon Submission mountain range, Ling Xiao realized the importance of this tactic more and more. Fei Fei, do you want to help your father vent his anger? Sect Master Chang Yueli asked Bai Fei Fei, who had already returned to her side. Yes. Chapter 501. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble everyone to arrange a match between Fei Fei and that little brat. Although the Supreme Sect Master's voice was very low, the elders responsible for arranging the matches did not dare disobey. Although Sect Master Chang Yuing was a little unhappy, there was nothing she could do. Chang Yueli was her master, and her cultivation was much higher than hers. As a result, the two people who were unlikely to meet were arranged together. It was just that they would not meet so soon. At the same time, Elder Jean was also arranging 2 matches. Of these 2 matches, one was against Zhao Ji and the other against Dai Yuling. As for the rest of the upper echelons, they turned a blind eye to this. In any case, it was not a big deal. As a result, Zhao Ji's next opponent was a peak transcendent realm 3rd layer cultivator, while he was only a peak transcendent realm 2nd layer cultivator. Dai Yuling's next opponent was an early transcendent realm 4th layer cultivator, while she was only an early transcendent realm 3rd layer cultivator. Elder Jean did not arrange an opponent that was too excessive, that would be too obvious. He still wanted to maintain his old face. Besides, he felt that an opponent a whole realm higher would be enough to defeat Zhao Ji and Dai Yuling. After all, these 2 people were not geniuses, and it was not easy for them to deal with cultivators in the same realm. Ling Xiao, little beast, if you dare disrespect this king will make all the people around you suffer. He glared at Ling Xiao coldly and thought to himself, the dignified head of the law enforcement hall was actually so narrow-minded. No wonder all the disciples he raised were so disgusting. Ling Xiao paid close attention to all of this. When Zhao Ji's opponent appeared, almost everyone thought that Zhao Ji would lose. Brother Emperor, it's all your fault for insisting on being friends with that Ling Xiao. Now I can see that someone is deliberately messing with you. Zhao Ci had gradually calmed down by this time, but she still felt that it was inappropriate for Zhao Ji to be friends with Ling Xiao. It doesn't matter if I lose, I still have a chance anyway. Besides, even if I can't participate in the Tower Ascension ceremony, Brother Emperor chose Ling Xiao to be my friend because he is loyal. Zhao Ji said as he was about to go on stage, but he was stopped by Ling Xiao, who whispered a few words in his ear. Really? Zhao Ji asked in surprise. You won't go wrong if you listen to me. Once you're up there, just do that. Ling Xiao nodded at him. Good. I believe senior brother Ling's words. Zhao Ji jumped onto the stage. When everyone on Elder Jin's side was waiting to see him make a fool of himself, he suddenly ended the battle with a very beautiful move. Victory in one move. His opponent's weak spot had been completely struck. Although it was one realm higher, it wasn't by much. The reason why geniuses were able to challenge those of a higher level was because of their outstanding eyesight. They were able to detect their opponent's weaknesses. Zhao Ji could not be considered a genius, but he had received guidance from Ling Xiao. With his full strength, he naturally won easily. It's Ling Xiao again. Sect leader, isn't this against the rules? Meng Yuan could not help but ask. Impudent, how can you speak to sect leader like that? Wang Han Tianzuan had long been unhappy with Elder Jin's side. He had been enduring it previously, but now he finally exploded. Disciple knows his mistake. Meng Yuan's expression was ugly as he apologized. All right, this isn't against the rules. There's no problem in giving some guidance before the battle, but after the battle begins, it's not allowed. Chang Yueying reminded. Following that, Dai Yuling's battle process was basically the same. She also won after receiving guidance from Ling Xiao. Although the two of them knew that doing this might be a bit unfair, they just didn't want to reveal their trump cards here. Otherwise, with their strength, they would be able to win. The Tower Ascension ceremony was very important. Even the person with the worst opportunity, as long as they didn't die inside, their cultivation and strength would advance by leaps and bounds after coming out. Thus, the two of them didn't want to miss it. Ling Xiao helped them because of this point. In the next few battles, Bai Feifei, Wu Yang, Qin Wu, Leng Hao, and Ming Tian were still able to win. Bai Feifei, Wu Yang, Qin Wu, and Ming Tian were basically able to defeat their opponents in a single move. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that he actually got a bye, causing him to be somewhat puzzled. Of course, he didn't think too much about it. The number of people was getting smaller and smaller, so it was possible for him to get a bye. Bai Feifei is the strongest, there's no doubt about it. Wu Yang and Qin Wu are both veteran inner sect disciples, and this is their last time participating in the Tower Ascension ceremony. As 7th layer Transcendent Realm cultivators, they're naturally the strongest. After them, I'm afraid Ming Tian and Leng Hao are the two great geniuses, right? Hey, don't forget about Ling Xiao. He still has a complete victory, so far. If there was a winning streak, he would have already advanced. That's true. Although Ling Xiao is an outer sect disciple, his strength is unfathomable. That guy is also a monster. He's obviously so strong, yet he refuses to enter the inner sect. It's really strange. The audience was discussing one after another, but the focus of their discussion was actually Ling Xiao, because so far, Ling Xiao was the most difficult person to see through among them. Let's wait and see. Ling Xiao only knows how to play some small tricks. He may not have true strength. Obviously, the discussion about Ling Xiao was divided into two extremes. Those who liked him very much. Those who didn't like him were jealous and unhappy. No matter what, they wanted to find fault with Ling Xiao. When there were only 60 people left, the elimination process became more and more intense. Zhao Ji finally lost another battle, making it 2 defeats. However, Ling Xiao felt that Zhao Ji had made a wise decision. The other party had a treasure-grade artifact, so there was no need for him to fight head-on. In any case, 2 defeats were absolutely allowed. There were only 40 spots left, so there was no reason to exhaust his strength. Perhaps after this round of battles, he wouldn't need to fight again. When Dai Yuling met Ming Tian, she also admitted defeat without hesitation. She wouldn't fight head-on in such an unwinnable battle. Moreover, even if she lost this battle, she had only lost once. As for Shang Wanlei, his luck was extremely good. Of course, it could also be said that Elder Jean had arranged a weaker opponent for him. He won easily, and he still had a complete victory until now. One really didn't know what kind of expression Elder Jean would have when he found out that Shangguan Lei had secretly helped Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao against Lung Hao. Ling Xiao's opponent was actually not weak. He was one of the two great geniuses, second only to Ming Tian. The reason why he arranged such an opponent for Ling Xiao was only because the Grand Sect Master wanted to use Lung Hao to see Ling Xiao's strength, so as to serve as a reference for Bai Feifei. After all, although Bai Feifei was strong, she had basically never displayed it against a human. Although she had killed many ferocious beasts, they were still very different from humans. Lung Hao was being used by someone without knowing it. Ling Xiao raised his head and glanced at heavenly venerable golden light on the grandstand. Chapter 502. Ling Xiao used his gaze to ask Empyrean Golden Light if he should give in to Lung Hao. However, the voice transmission that Empyrean Golden Light gave him was, "Help this Empyrean wake that guy up properly. This brat's cultivation has advanced a bit now and is a little too arrogant. Have to kill his arrogance." "All right then." Ling Xiao laughed bitterly. This Empyrean Golden Light was also too much. "You didn't teach your own disciple yourself, but instead made me help you. Sigh, might as well give it a try." The spectators were all looking forward to this battle very much. After all, Lung Hao was regarded as one of the two great geniuses like Ming Tian. Although his cultivation was slightly lacking, that was because his foundation was weaker to begin with. In terms of cultivation speed, not only did he not lose to Ming Tian, he was even a little faster. Whether Ling Xiao had real ability or fake ability, this battle would be able to see clearly. However, to their disappointment, the battle ended much faster than they had imagined. In their view, even if Lung Hao could not defeat Ling Xiao, he could at least last over 100 moves. But Ling Xiao only used one move to defeat Lung Hao. At any rate, he used a move. Snow Lotus Sword Art, Flying Snow. This was Ling Xiao's most commonly used sword move. What he used in his hand was still the Ice Dragon Sword. He did not use any special move. This made the Grand Sect Master greatly disappointed. However, it was this move that directly shattered Lung Hao's protective true essence. Then, a bloody hole appeared on his shoulder, and he was also directly pierced flying out. Lung Hao, who was lying on the ground, simply did not dare to believe this result. He had not even used a move yet, and was actually defeated. Elder Jean and the Grand Sect Master exchanged a glance, both seeing the shock in each other's eyes. But Wang Han Tianzuan and Yang Danlin were overjoyed. As for Empyrean Golden Light, he directly went over and mentioned his disciple Lung Hao, muttering something in his ear. It was also unknown what he said. Lung Hao's originally dejected fighting spirit burst forth once more. "Ling Xiao, from now on, Ming Tian is no longer the target that I pursue. You will become my new target to pursue." After saying that, Lung Hao returned to Heavenly Lord Golden Light's side and sat down cross-legged to heal himself. Ling Xiao didn't use too much force, so his injuries weren't that serious. After this round of battles, some more people were eliminated. There were still 50 people left. There were a total of 50 participants in the Tower Ascension ceremony, but because there were 10 seeded contestants, the final quota for the qualifiers was 40. Therefore, another 10 people had to be eliminated. It was estimated that after another round of battle, it should be about done. Ling Xiao took a deep breath. He felt that something was amiss. The Grand Supreme Sect Master was looking at him as if he was a test subject. Was he really going to let Bai Feifei fight him? He shook his head. "Let's fight then. Who's afraid of who? As long as you're not afraid of losing face." Ling Xiao sneered. He was actually looking forward to it. Currently, the few people with the best battle records seemed to have powerful backers behind them. Bai Feifei represented the Grand Supreme Sect leader. Ming Tian represented the Flame Deity. Behind Wu Yang and Qin Wu was Elder Jean. Lung Hao represented Heavenly Lord Golden Light. Ling Xiao represented the entire outer sect. Naturally, he would receive the support of the outer sect Hall Master, Heavenly Lord Wu Go. Of course, he also had the support of Yang Danlin and Wang Han Tianzuan. This was another story. At this point in the battle, although the higher-ups didn't participate in the battle, they were actually competing in their hearts. They all hoped that their disciples would be able to achieve a hearty victory. Junior brotherling, as long as you don't meet my senior sister by Fei Fei, Wu Yang, and Qin Wu, there shouldn't be a problem, right? Although Lan Yu was the Grand Supreme Sect Master's disciple, she was obviously a little too concerned about Ling Xiao. That's true. Ling Xiao smiled. Lan Yu was right. Although he could defeat Wu Yang and Qin Wu, he was afraid that he would have to use some extraordinary means. And if he wanted to defeat by Fei Fei, it would be even more troublesome. Unfortunately, senior sister, my opponent for this round is still your senior sister, by Fei Fei. Ling Xiao shrugged helplessly and showed Lan Yu, or the number he drew. How could it be? Lan Yu smiled bitterly and said, Junior brotherling, you are too unlucky. Alas, forget it. Anyway, you haven't lost a single battle. When you meet my senior sister, just admit defeat. You are not her opponent. I want to admit defeat, but I'm afraid that she won't give me the chance. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly and said, Your senior sister is so strong. If she really forces me to fight, I won't be able to do anything unless I take a blow from her. Then what should we do? Lan Yu asked worriedly. Forget it. There will always be a way. Ling Xiao smiled and said. The battle resumed. Zhao Zi's last battle was very difficult. In the end, he relied on the defensive fine artifact that Ling Xiao gave him to take a blow from his opponent and then defeated him. It was a narrow victory. He probably knew that this might be the last round, so he went all out. Dai Yuling was more unlucky to meet Wu Yang. Under Ling Xiao's reminder, she directly counted her opponents. So far, she had been defeated twice, but she would not be eliminated. Shangguan Lei's opponent this time was still evenly matched, but with the defensive artifact in his hand, he won in the end. Zhao Zi and Shangguan Lei's victory was really related to Ling Xiao. As for Lung Hao, although he was defeated by Ling Xiao, he won this round cleanly. He defeated his opponent, who was stronger than him, and it was obvious that this guy's cultivation had a breakthrough. Qin Wu's opponent directly admitted defeat, so he won easily. Ming Tian's opponent did not admit defeat, but he was still defeated by Ming Tian in one blow. Ming Tian. Until now, Ming Tian still had a perfect record. Of course, this was related to the fact that he did not meet by Fei Fei, Wu Yang, or Qin Wu, but it was still very dazzling. Therefore, among the spectators, he had too many fans. However, Ming Tian seemed to be unsatisfied. Although he had won, his eyes were fixed on Ling Xiao. His battle intent surged to the heavens, and many people were shocked by it. Everyone looked at Ling Xiao. They thought that Ling Xiao would at least show respect or pay equal attention to Ming Tian. However, he did not. Ling Xiao closed his eyes at this time and did not pay attention to Ming Tian at all. It was because in his eyes a person like Ming Tian, who betrayed his master and ancestors and betrayed him, was not worthy of being his opponent at all. Not to mention that Ming Tian was inferior to him now. Even if he was really stronger, he would be too lazy to pay attention to him. What's with Ling Xiao's attitude? He even looks down on the number one genius? That's right. What's so great about him? He just defeated Lung Hao. How can Lung Hao be compared to Ming Tian? A bunch of idiots. Your vision is not as good as a frog at the bottom of a well. Lung Hao scolded disdainfully. Ling Xiao's strength is not what you can estimate. If you don't believe me, who dares to bet with me? Bet on what? Bet on the battle between Ling Xiao and senior apprentice sister Bai. I bet that Ling Xiao will win. Lung Hao's words were simply shocking. Even Heavenly Venerable Golden Light felt that this disciple of his was crazy. Chapter 503. Ha 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 ha. There was a burst of laughter from below the stage, because no one thought that Ling Xiao would win, including Heavenly Sovereign Golden Light, Wang Han Tianzuan, Heavenly Sovereign Wu Go, Yang Danlin, and others who supported Ling Xiao. I say, Leng Hao, did you lose to Ling Xiao? Is your brain stupid? Shin Tianlin said disdainfully, what does an idiot like you know? I heard that you actually stopped Ling Xiao and said that you wanted to teach him a lesson. I advise you to give up on that idea as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will definitely regret it. Don't forget those idiots in the outer sect, Wang Feng, Su Ying, and He Suo. In the past, Leng Hao was actually quite disdainful of Ling Xiao. In fact, because his master often mentioned Ling Xiao in his ears, he even had a very strong hostility towards Ling Xiao. However, after today's battle, he could be considered to have been enlightened. Ling Xiao was really no longer on the same level as them. This person was not only powerful in strength, but also in that terrifying wisdom. What was Bai Feifei? Although she was strong, she had never experienced actual combat. She would not even know how she died if she was played to death by Ling Xiao. It was precisely because of this that he firmly believed that Ling Xiao could definitely win. Do you dare to bet? Leng Hao asked loudly. Don't mess around. Come back quickly. Heavenly Sovereign Golden Light shouted sternly. Although Leng Hao was a little unhappy, his master told him to go back. He could only helplessly walk towards Heavenly Sovereign Golden Light. Little fellow, this old woman will bet with you. The sect master suddenly smiled and said, if you lose, your master will have to promise to do something for me. If you win, this old woman will also promise to do something for you. Sect master, why do you have to make things difficult for a child? Heavenly Sovereign Golden Light smiled bitterly. Leng Hao said, master is master and I am me. Although I definitely won't lose, I can't use master as a wager. Haha, I've long heard that Heavenly Sovereign Golden Light is domineering and straightforward. This old woman also admires it very much. Why is it that when I see you today, you are as timid as a mouse? You are actually inferior to your own disciple? The Grand Sect Master narrowed his eyes and smiled. Let's bet then. Heavenly Lord Golden Light was a rather straightforward person. Even if the other party was the Grand Sect Master, he could not tolerate being forced to such an extent. What a fool, Golden Light! Wang Han Tianzuan smiled bitterly and said, do you really think Ling Xiao can win? It's too difficult. Heavenly Lord Golden Light glanced at Ling Xiao with a questioning look. Ling Xiao was silent for a moment before he finally nodded. The more he looked at the self-proclaimed old woman, the more he disliked her. Since you've arranged for your disciple to deal with me, then don't blame me if she loses. All right, Supreme Sect Master. Everyone here heard what you said just now. The Golden Ray Celestial Swordling Xiao nodded and made the final decision. This young man had given him too many surprises, so he was willing to take a gamble. That Ling Xiao is really a madman. That's right. He actually wants to defeat Senior Sister Bai, who is a half-step Empyrean. Maybe he has some other tricks up his sleeve? Who knows? Anyway, the battle is about to begin. We'll know the result later. This battle was incomparably anticipated. In addition, the battles on the other battle stages had also ended. Therefore, it could be said that everyone present was watching Ling Xiao and Bai Feifei. On the battle stage, Ling Xiao cupped his hands towards Bai Feifei and said, Senior Sister Bai, please show mercy. Show mercy? Bai Feifei snorted coldly and said, whether it's my foster father or my master, they have never taught me how to show mercy. Hearing this, Ling Xiao could not help but be puzzled. Wasn't the difference between the three disciples taught by the same master too great? Well, does Senior Sister Bai know that her biological father is still alive? Ling Xiao asked again. Of course, these conversations were carried out between the two of them through voice transmission. No one else could hear them. Of course I know. No? If you know, why don't you look for him? Ling Xiao was shocked. He had always thought that Bai Feifei was kept in the dark by the flame deity, so she did not know that her father was still alive. It turned out that this woman knew. Humph, a piece of trash is not worthy of being my father. Bai Feifei snorted coldly. Senior sister Bai, do you know that your mother was killed by the flame deity and you were also kidnapped by the flame deity? Your father, Master Bai Yin, has been looking for you all these years. Ling Xiao explained. I know all these. Foster father has already told me. Bai Feifei sneered and said, but so what? I'm living very well now. In this world, only the strong have status and dignity. The weak should die. I won't kill you today. Go back and tell that old man to stop bothering me in the future. I, Bai Feifei, only have one father, and that is the flame deity. You're really hopeless. Ling Xiao had thought that after explaining everything, Bai Feifei would cry bitterly and seek revenge on the flame deity. But he was wrong. Who said that people were born good? It was all nonsense. If this woman had not wanted to become like this, the flame deity alone would not have been able to train her to such a state. What's more, even though they were both Chang Yueli's disciples, Chang Yueying and Lan Yu were completely different from her. Sure enough, she had chosen this path willingly. Enough nonsense. When the battle begins, I will let you know that in the world of the strong, the weak have no right to speak at all. Bai Feifei looked at Heavenly Eye, waiting for the battle to begin. It's not wrong to respect the strong, but if you forget even the most basic human relationships, then you are no different from a beast. Today, let me, Ling Xiao, beat you awake, stupid woman. Ling Xiao's aura suddenly soared as he fully released his early transcendent realm 6th layer cultivation. How is this possible? This little brat actually broke through to the transcendent realm 6th layer in such a short time. How did he cultivate? Too terrifying. What genius? There's nothing in front of him. This is a true genius. So what if he's a genius? It's a pity he's too arrogant and doesn't know his limits. Today, he will definitely be defeated by Senior Sister Bai. For a time, there were all kinds of comments in the audience. Some praised Ling Xiao. Naturally, there were also those who were jealous. There were also those who poured cold water on him and cursed. However, all of this had nothing to do with Ling Xiao on the stage. His battle had already begun. The battle stage's spirit array was firmly in his hands. Not only that, he had also integrated the plague bone dissolving array and myriad beast blood refining array into it. If he did not play with this, Bai Feifei this time, he would write his name upside down. Ling Xiao versus Bai Feifei battle begin. The instant Empyrean Heavenly Eye's voice fell. Bai Feifei abruptly erupted. Obviously, she was not willing to give Ling Xiao any chance to beg for mercy or admit defeat. She wanted to defeat Ling Xiao in the cleanest and most elegant way possible. One move was enough. That was what she thought. Below the stage, Dai Yuling cried out nervously. Lan Yu also looked nervous. Zhao Ji was on tenterhooks. Yang Danlin, Heavenly Venerable Wu Go, Wang Han Tianzuan, and Heavenly Venerable Golden Light were also worried. Elder Jean, Grand Sect Master, and the others, however, smiled. What's the use of having a sharp tongue? You're still going to lose. Chapter 504. Bang! Bai Feifei's fair palm imprinted onto Ling Xiao's body, and a huge explosion sounded out. His body instantly split apart, shattering into pieces on the ground. Fake! Bai Feifei looked at the fragments beneath her feet in shock, and then she turned her gaze to Ling Xiao, who had already appeared on the other side of the contest ring. Then he laughed disdainfully. Interesting, I didn't expect you to be able to condense a sword soul clone. But do you really think that you can become my opponent just by relying on this little trick? Don't worry, this is just the beginning. I'll let you know in a while how terrifying this martial arts world is. It's not something that can be understood just by killing a few fierce beasts. Ling Xiao smiled and ignored Bai Feifei's offensive words. He had already understood by Feifei's level. His strength was really strong. The attack power of a half-step Empyrean was definitely not something that he could withstand. Even if his earth spirit body could withstand it, he would definitely be injured. However, this woman's actual combat experience was too poor. She couldn't even see through the sword's soul clone, so he had some confidence in his heart. Taking advantage of the fact that this woman was still unclear about his methods, he might as well make the first move and gain the upper hand. He would be able to find some flaws in this woman's background. Thinking of this, he suddenly pulled out his ice dragon sword, a powerful true essence condensed on it. Bai Feifei was not in a hurry to attack, because she realized that Ling Xiao had no intention of surrendering or begging for mercy. Since that was the case, there was no need to do that. She was also very curious as to what qualifications Ling Xiao had to fight with her. 12 Golden Lotus, Arts, Rain, Celestial Phenomenon. Hua! Suddenly, a torrential rain began to pour down on the contest ring. However, the strange thing was that the entire area where the heavy rain fell was only the contest ring. There was not a single drop of rain in the surroundings. The rain had completely covered Bai Feifei's line of sight on the stage. Only the experts of the Heaven Realm could vaguely see the two figures in the heavy rain. Bai Feifei frowned. She really did not expect Ling Xiao to do such a thing. However, after a moment of surprise, he didn't think much of it. She believed that she was strong enough to disdain Ling Xiao's despicable methods. Even if it was raining heavily and she couldn't see Ling Xiao's figure, as long as he made a move, she would be able to react. She released her true essence in an attempt to sense the existence of Ling Xiao. However, at that moment, she suddenly felt discomfort in her body. Oh no, this isn't normal rain. Bai Feifei was really too inexperienced. Did she think that Ling Xiao had spent so much effort to make this rain purely to hide himself? As the torrential rain fell on her body, she actually felt a burst of palpitations, as if her true essence was rapidly disintegrating. Turning pale with fright, Bai Feifei angrily shouted, "Despicable and shameless thief! Your tricks are useless against me!" A sword appeared in her hand, and she pierced through the air. A terrifying amount of true essence leaked out, and the torrential rain around her seemed to have encountered an obstacle and could no longer land on her body. Even so, Bai Feifei didn't dare to be careless. Now that the problem of the torrential rain has been solved, she still didn't see Ling Xiao's figure. Therefore, she clenched her teeth and continued to stab with her long sword. One has to admit that she was truly strong. The wind phenomenon was completely destroyed by her, and the torrential rain on the battling platform stopped. Other than Ling Xiao's disappearance, everything seemed to have returned to normal. Where is Ling Xiao? Where is Ling Xiao? Ling Xiao sure is strange. There's nothing else on the battling platform, yet he was able to disappear right under our noses. How did he do it? Bai Feifei was not the only one who was shocked and flustered. Even the higher-ups who were watching the battle were shocked. Don't panic. Bai Feifei tried her best to calm herself down. She believed that with her capabilities, even if Ling Xiao turned into a mosquito and flew past her, she would be able to detect him. If that was the case, then what was there to worry about? She stood on the battling platform and carefully observed her surroundings. There wasn't even a bug that crawled on the clean stone floor. But Ling Xiao, a living person, just disappeared without a trace. Could it be an array? Bai Feifei was a little nervous. Arrays and arrays were far too mysterious. She didn't know anything about them, but she knew how powerful they were. She didn't dare to be careless and didn't even dare to move. Suddenly, someone below the stage laughed out loud. You are a half-step heavenly sovereign, and you claim that you can kill Ling Xiao with one move. But now, you are so scared that you don't even dare to move. The person who spoke was Lung Hao. This kid was really bold. He even dared to laugh at Bai Feifei. However, he was one of the geniuses groomed by the Yuehua school, and he had heavenly sovereign golden light's protection. He really wasn't afraid of anything. Moreover, what he said was the truth. Although the Grand Supreme Sect Master's old face was very smooth, it seemed to have stiffened at this moment. A few wrinkles actually appeared on his face. She didn't expect Ling Xiao to be able to use arrays to such an extent. He was even more brilliant than the array master. Bai Fei was provoked by Lung Hao's words. She was furious. She gritted her teeth and finally raised her foot. However, at that moment, she suddenly felt an almost imperceptible, murderous aura rushing toward her. She didn't panic. Instead, she smiled. Ling Xiao, that brat, really couldn't hold it in anymore. She still pretended to walk in the direction of the murderous aura. She seemed to be defenseless, but her expression was exceptionally focused. No one. When she walked there, she didn't find anything unusual. Ling Xiao was still nowhere to be seen, and the murderous aura had also disappeared. Oh no! Suddenly, she felt a slight fluctuation of true core in the sky above her head. At that moment, she realized that she had made a serious mistake. She only cared about looking around and didn't look up to check. Now that she felt the faint fluctuation of true core, she knew that something was wrong. It was too late to check, so she simply stabbed her sword toward the top of her head and burst out with powerful true core. She was determined to make Ling Xiao, who had ambushed her, suffer a great loss. It would be best if he was killed by her sword. Only then would she be able to vent the hatred in her heart. Whoosh! Bang! The sword chi directly collided with the array protective wall of the battling platform, making a dull sound. However, no one screamed. She looked up in great perplexity. However, there was no one there. She had used up a lot of true core to attack, but it turned out that she was just being paranoid. That faintly discernible true essence fluctuation came from the battle stage's array formation. Ling Xiao, that brat, actually played such a trick. Could it be that he wants to exhaust me to death? Bai Fei thought of a very pessimistic possibility. If that was really the case, then she would lose too unjustly today. What is Senior Sister Bai doing? Fighting with the air? Someone below the stage asked in confusion. Chapter 505. What the hell do you know? We can't see Ling Xiao, but Senior Sister Bai should be able to see him. Maybe Ling Xiao has already been stabbed. Just as this person's voice fell, a dazzling cold light suddenly stabbed towards Bai Fei's side with the force of thunder and lightning. The tip of the sword had already pierced through Bai Fei's clothes. Only then did this proud and vicious woman realize the danger. At that moment, she was so frightened that her soul almost flew away. But after all, she had fought countless fierce beasts. At the crucial moment, she condensed all the true essence in her body to one point and blocked Ling Xiao's sword attack. But even so, her clothes still seeped with dark red blood. Although the injury was not serious, it was still an injury. After Bai Fei blocked Ling Xiao's attack, she did not dare to be negligent. Her figure rapidly retreated and almost directly fell out of the tournament stage. Only then did she manage to stand still, looking at the place where the sword light stabbed out in shock and anger. In the void, there was actually a deep air cave. The tournament stage's array has the function of allowing cultivators to temporarily dodge attacks. It only comes in handy when the opponent goes crazy. I didn't expect this kid to actually use it, the Array Hall Master said in surprise. She really admired Ling Xiao. This kid really made her, the Hall Master, feel ashamed of her own inferiority. Ling Xiao jumped out of the cave and shook off the blood on the tip of the sword. He smiled and said, "What a pity. I thought this sneak attack was perfect. I didn't expect Senior Sister to actually block it. But then again, you should be glad that this is just a tournament and not a Jianghu vendetta. Otherwise, you would already be dead." Ling Xiao had a treasured artifact in his hand. If he really wanted to kill Bai Fei, he definitely could have done it. He only needed to enter his human dragon form. But he could not kill this person for the time being. Although this woman was hateful, she was Grandmaster by Yun's daughter. At most, he could capture this woman alive and hand her over to Grandmaster by Yun to deal with. This was a promise that he once made. He would not easily go back on his words. Looking at Ling Xiao's calm and collected manner, he thought to himself. Bai Feifei's originally rosy face turned a little pale. Her heart was still thumping wildly because of the thrill of the sword just now. It was a close call. Although Ling Xiao made it sound easy, she could feel that she had just brushed shoulders with death. Ever since she became sensible, she had only had such an experience once, and that was when she was attacked by 2 peak class 9 vicious beasts. At that time, she was only an 8th order transcendent realm cultivator. Now, she was already a half-step Empyrean, but this fear once again occupied her entire body. And the one who gave her this fear was none other than Ling Xiao. It was that Ling Xiao whom she looked down on and disdained. Admit defeat, Senior Sister Bai. I'll give the Grand Sect Master some face today. I can't let her lose face, right? Ling Xiao looked at the Grand Sect Master on the stage with a smile. This old lady might not have any grievances with Ling Xiao, but her personality was vicious. She didn't need a reason to kill and destroy people. Perhaps in her eyes, Ling Xiao was just a test subject, just like those vicious beasts she had captured and used as sparring partners for her disciples. If he died, he died. If there was a grudge between them, Ling Xiao could understand. But this kind of character who didn't take the lives of others seriously made him feel very uncomfortable. Especially this time, the one being used as a test subject was him. Since you treat this young master like this, don't blame this young master for not giving you any face. He said he wanted Bai Feifei to admit defeat, but in fact he was simply slapping Grand Sect Master Chan Yueli's face. What a joke! How could I possibly admit defeat? Bai Feifei took a deep breath and gradually calmed down. Although she was still afraid, the same trick would definitely not work in front of her, so she was no longer afraid. At this time, her voice was slightly hoarse and dry because of fear. I admit that as your senior sister, I have underestimated a despicable and cunning little brat like you. You have played this trick beautifully. You are really qualified to make me use my real strength. Without waiting for Ling Xiao to react, Bai Feifei raised the long sword in her hand and pointed it at Ling Xiao. He could feel that her true essence was undergoing some special changes. At the same time, a martial spirit phantom appeared behind her. It was a lute as white as jade, an ancient musical instrument. Pipa martial spirit? Ling Xiao had seen weapon-type martial spirits before, but it was the first time he had seen a musical instrument martial spirit like the pipa. However, no matter what martial spirit it was, there were only 3 functions. First, to strengthen the martial artist's ability in a certain aspect. Second, to help the martial artist attack. Third, to bestow the martial artist with a special ability. Basically, there were only these 3 types, unless it was an extremely special martial spirit, such as the 9 Great Primordial Dragon Soul, which might have other special effects. Ling Xiao stood there with the ice dragon's sword in his hand, looking for an opportunity to attack. The current Bai Feifei made her feel that she was in danger, so he didn't approach her for the time being. After all, his opponent's cultivation was much stronger than his. A head-on battle was simply courting death. To fight with this woman, one naturally had to rely on wisdom. Demonic sound sword art. Bai Feifei slowly spat out 4 short and powerful words. This cold and ruthless voice seemed to come from the depths of hell, bringing with it an extremely terrifying killing intent and a strange feeling. It seemed like this woman really hated Ling Xiao to the core. This kind of hatred and killing intent was something that could only be displayed by an irreconcilable enemy. As Bai Feifei's voice fell, an astonishing baleful aura suddenly erupted from her body. This aura was like a storm, becoming stronger and stronger. It also quickly spread out in all directions, quickly enveloping the entire contest ring. Although Ling Xiao was already prepared, He was still hit head-on by this sudden and violent aura. He retreated more than 10 steps before he could stabilize himself. What a terrifying true essence! What a terrifying aura! Ling Xiao frowned. His heart couldn't help but tremble. He was very clear that his sneak attack just now had caused Bai Feifei to suffer a loss and lose quite a bit of face. This woman was preparing to use her true trump card. Even calling out his martial spirit was the best evidence. Little bastard, to be able to see my martial spirit and demonic sound sword art, even if you go to hell, you should be satisfied. Bai Feifei's furious voice sounded from the contest ring. The spectators could all feel that terrifying aura. Ling Xiao is in trouble this time. Yeah, he's just a little smart, but he can't beat Senior Sister Bai's strength. I heard that the demonic sound sword art is a top gold grade martial art. Even core disciples find it hard to learn it. And that Peepa martial spirit, it doesn't seem to be much of a threat, but the more strange the martial spirit is, the more troublesome it is. Right. The sounds of discussion were incessant. However, Ling Xiao did not listen to a single word. Chapter 506. Ling Xiao was currently an early Transcendent Realm 6th layer cultivator, while his opponent was a half-step Heavenly Venerable, an existence that surpassed the peak of the Transcendent Realm 9th layer. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to be Bai Feifei's opponent, but the current situation was in his favor. He could draw true chi from the half-step Heavenly Venerable guarding the battle stage with the help of the Spirit Array, so his strength was not inferior to Bai Feifei's. If it were any other place, he would most likely be forced to flee upon seeing Bai Feifei, unless he used his ancient golden dragon form. But the current situation was special, and Bai Feifei, this stupid woman's combat experience and adaptability were simply too poor. If he couldn't even win against this girl, then he, Ling Xiao, would have gotten the Mountain River martial spirit for nothing. He would be too useless. The poor half-step Heavenly Venerable, guarding the Spirit Array, felt his true chi constantly leaking out and thought that the battle between the two of them was putting too much pressure on the Spirit Array. But little did he know that Ling Xiao was secretly using his true chi. Standing there, Ling Xiao's expression remained unchanged as he coldly stared at the long sword in Bai Feifei's hand, feeling a little surprised. He saw that Bai Feifei's long sword was undergoing some strange changes at this moment. Many strange inscriptions had appeared on the originally smooth blade of the sword, giving off a colorful glow. Not only that, but the long sword was also vibrating slightly and emitting a strange sound. This sound might only sound beautiful to others, but in Ling Xiao's ears, it was like the sound of a demon, giving him a strong sense of foreboding. But even so, Ling Xiao's face was still as indifferent as water, as if there were no fluctuations in his emotions. His expression made Bai Feifei feel very uncomfortable. In Bai Feifei's opinion, once she used her demonic sound sword art and summoned her Peepa martial spirit, Ling Xiao would definitely be shocked and helpless, especially with her terrifying murderous intent and violent momentum. Against an early 6th layer Transcendent Realm cultivator, it was like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. She thought that Ling Xiao would immediately kneel down and kowtow to admit defeat. However, the reality was far from what she had imagined. I really hate that expression of yours. You're just a trivial early-stage Transcendent Realm 6th layer cultivator. What gives you the right to act so calm in front of a half-step Heavenly Venerable? Why was he so confident? Are you that confident? Bai Feifei gritted her teeth and said, "You hypocrite, show me your fear and panic, and maybe I'll spare your life." Oh, really? Ling Xiao shrugged and said, "I'm really sorry to make you unhappy, Senior Sister, but I can't help it. Senior Sister's performance really can't make me feel spirited, let alone scared. If this is all you have, then it's really disappointing." Psychological warfare was also a type of battle. To deal with a girl like Bai Feifei who had no actual combat experience, a few words were enough to make her completely crazy and lose her mind. As expected, Bai Feifei's expression became even angrier. She let out a wild howl and leaped up. With a light shake of the sword in her hand, she had already pierced it towards Ling Xiao. Demon note sword art, heart slayer. A strange sound accompanied the sword strike as Bai Feifei's pipa martial spirit began to play. This kind of music intoxicated the spectators and made them want to stand up and cheer for Bai Feifei. But for Ling Xiao, this was music that could kill. Listening to it was like listening to a demonic tune, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. Bai Feifei did not want to give Ling Xiao a chance to play psychological warfare. She knew that she could not win against Ling Xiao, nor was she as cunning as Ling Xiao. So she planned to rely on her cultivation to kill Ling Xiao in one fell swoop. Ling Xiao stood there, his expression unchanged as he watched Bai Feifei's attack. As the mountain and river martial spirit circulated, the target and weakness of Bai Feifei's sword appeared. Seeing that Bai Feifei was already a foot away from him, he suddenly raised his ice dragon sword and thrusted it towards Bai Feifei. He did not defend at all. This sword of his was aimed at Bai Feifei's heart, which was a vital point. If Ling Xiao had used his qin gong to escape or used a formation to dodge, Bai Feifei would have been annoyed. However, when she saw that Ling Xiao was actually planning to exchange blows with her, the flames of joy ignited in her heart, and the expression on her face became ferocious. "Idiot, go and die. Go and repent after you go to hell." She spoke extremely quickly. The sword in her hand changed moves, blocking Ling Xiao's ice dragon sword. However, at this moment, her face revealed a complacent smile, because under the long sword, a sword light suddenly split out, piercing straight towards Ling Xiao's heart. So her demonic sound sword actually had such a profound ability. Seeing that, Ling Xiao did not dare to be negligent. Holding onto the ice dragon sword in his right hand, he continued to confront Bai Feifei's sword, while his left hand pulled out another sword, the Thunder Shadow sword that he had just bought from the Divine Weapon Hall. Since the opponent used the demonic sound, he would use the thunder sound to break it. Buzz! When the Thunder Shadow sword collided with the sword light, it produced a strange rumbling sound. Many of the disciples below the stage turned pale and spat out blood. There were even many people who fainted on the spot. This sound attack was simply too terrifying. It killed without leaving a trace and was difficult to block. However, Ling Xiao had used the sound of thunder to break the demonic sound, causing Bai Feifei's sword technique to become meaningless. Although the sword technique was broken, a look of surprise flashed past Bai Feifei's eyes. However, her attack did not stop because of this. Demonic sound sword art? Scattering splendor. Suddenly, the sword in her hand transformed into dozens of illusions, and the pipa martial spirit behind her started to play even more hurried music. Countless notes that flickered with light attacked Ling Xiao like a torrential rain. The distance was too close, and the power was even more ferocious. Ling Xiao did not dare to take it head-on. Cloud Dragon Divine Travel? Illusion Array. Fully aware that his cultivation was far inferior to Bai Feifei's, Ling Xiao's brows furrowed slightly, but he did not show any signs of panic. In that instant, his entire person suddenly transformed into a faintly discernible illusory figure, speeding up on the stage. Notes that flickered with light constantly bombarded the stage, rumbling loudly. The half-step Empyreans guarding the array also became increasingly pale. Switch with this Empyrean. At the critical moment, the inner hall master Empyrean, Heavenly, I personally took action, protecting the stage's array formation, so as to prevent it from suddenly collapsing and injuring the disciples below the stage. The reason why that whistling sound just now overflowed was most likely because the half-step Empyrean's true essence was insufficient. He could not let the same thing happen again. When Bai Feifei saw Ling Xiao's ghost-like movement technique, her head hurt badly. What she could do now was to continue increasing the input of true essence. The peepus sound became even more hurried, like the drumbeats of a battlefield, and those flashing notes became more and more concentrated, virtually not giving Ling Xiao the slightest room to dodge. The spectators all exclaimed that it was marvelous. I originally thought that there was no suspense in this battle, but it was actually so brilliant and peerless. It really greatly exceeded my expectations. Even the headmaster Chang Yueying was also filled with emotion. This kind of battle who loved to watch. That kind of one-sided battle, although satisfying, it was too fast. There was simply no time to appreciate it. Chapter 507. Bai Feifei's attacks became faster and faster, but Ling Xiao's movement technique was too strange. He was sometimes fast and sometimes slow, and sometimes even stopped abruptly. However, those notes were unable to attack him, and could not even touch the corner of his clothes. Only when the notes gradually slowed down, and Bai Feifei stopped attacking, while panting, slightly did Ling Xiao stop. His figure quickly became real, revealing his hateful and indifferent face. Bai Feifei stood there, her chest rising and falling, and the hand holding the sword was trembling. It was obvious that she had consumed a lot of energy after using the powerful sword technique twice in a row. It should be about time to end the battle. Looking at Bai Feifei's situation, Ling Xiao revealed a smile of wisdom. Bai Feifei was extremely unhappy. This guy was actually like this again. Could it be that he had some tricks up his sleeves? Ling Xiao didn't care what she thought. To deal with people who were stronger than him, the first thing he had to do was to avoid their sharpness, then dampen their spirit and exhaust their true essence as much as possible. He had to find a suitable opportunity to completely defeat them with the force of a thunderbolt. Now it was time. He made an attacking posture and kept the ice dragon sword. Holding the thunder's shadow sword tightly with both hands, he aimed it at Bai Feifei. Bai Feifei was not in a hurry to attack. In fact, she had no way to attack first. She needed to recover, so she planned to stall for time. Junior brother Ling, to be honest, the fact that you were able to dodge 2 of my fatal attacks in a row has greatly surprised me. But do you think that if this continues, you will have the chance to dodge my attack again? To tell you the truth, although your movement technique is miraculous, when you used your sword move just now, I already discovered its weakness. Next, if you continue to be stubborn, then I will use an even more powerful sword move to defeat you. I have just mastered that sword move, and I can't even control it myself. Bai Feifei's attitude was as fickle as the weather in summer. Just a moment ago, he had wanted to kill him, but now he was actually affectionately calling him junior brother. This made Ling Xiao feel a burst of disgust, and goosebumps appeared all over his body. Did this idiotic woman really think that she could stall for time or make him underestimate her? Bai Feifei probably didn't know that the more she said this, the less confident she was. Ling Xiao was increasingly certain that the best time for him to end the battle had arrived. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your kindness, senior sister, but it's too late." Bai Feifei's pretty face was filled with a ferocious expression, and her entire body was trembling with anger. This Ling Xiao actually dared to not give her face, actually dared to not do as she said. Damn it. Since you insist on destroying both jade and common stone, then bring it on. She lost her mind once again and forgot that she had used up too much of her energy. She prepared to suddenly attack and kill Ling Xiao in one fell swoop. Idiot who doesn't know what's good for you, go to hell. Bai Feifei suddenly lifted her foot and took a step forward. Heavenly sound step. Her figure suddenly disappeared, and in an instant she appeared at a place about 10 feet away from Ling Xiao. In terms of speed, it was even faster than Ling Xiao's Cloud Dragon Divine Travel, but it was not as strange. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a cold smile. However, the contradictory thing was that shock appeared on his face, and his figure involuntarily retreated backward, with a panicked look in his eyes. The Thunder Shadow sword in his hand also waved out a sword net, attempting to completely protect himself, as if he had instantly forgotten that his cultivation was much lower than his opponent's, and that he could not fight head-on. Idiot! Bai Feifei cursed inwardly, thinking that she had indeed made the right choice in using the heavenly melody steps at the very end. It was obvious that she had given Ling Xiao a huge shock, but that was enough. After that, the long sword in her hand trembled and directly pierced into the sword net of Ling Xiao's Thunder Shadow sword. Based on her cultivation, she was not afraid of going head-to-head with Ling Xiao. Seeing that the long sword was about to break through the sword net and pierce Ling Xiao, Bai Feifei was alarmed to hear Ling Xiao's laughter. That laughter seemed to be somewhat complacent. Not good. A woman's intuition told Bai Feifei that she had fallen into a trap. But what kind of trap? She was completely unclear. Could this be another doppelganger? Impossible. This was definitely the real body. Stupid woman, look around you. Ling Xiao's cold voice rang out once again. Before Bai Feifei had time to look at the situation around her, suddenly the sky-shaking roars of wild beasts rang out from the tournament stage. It was as if countless wild beasts were crying out in grief, and that sound was enough to cause one to completely collapse. Then Bai Feifei saw an incredible scene. Countless wild beasts, demon beasts, ferocious beasts, and evil beasts rushed towards her from all around the tournament stage. She wanted to escape, but her body couldn't move, as if it was imprisoned by something. 1,000 beast blood refining array. I didn't set it up for nothing. Now it's time to put it to use. Ling Xiao secretly sneered. He didn't intend to fight head-on with Bai Feifei in this battle. He just wanted to win, so he could do whatever it took. He didn't care about how he did it or what he did. In the eyes of the spectators, Bai Feifei was clearly about to attack Ling Xiao, but she suddenly stopped. Then the long sword in her hand was thrown to the ground, and she held her head and screamed in pain. They didn't understand what happened, because they couldn't see the illusion of the 1,000 beast blood refining array. Feifei, you disappoint me too much. Just when Ling Xiao was sure to win this round, Grand Headmaster Chang Yueli suddenly said. Her voice seemed to be blaming Bai Feifei, but in fact, she used her powerful soul force to break the illusion created by Ling Xiao. At that moment, Bai Feifei woke up from the illusion. She was shocked and angry. She was annoyed that she had fallen into Ling Xiao's trap again and again. She was angry at Ling Xiao's cunning. With the help of Grand Headmaster, she got out of the predicament. She raised her hand, and the demon note sword automatically returned to her hand. Then she desperately waved the long sword, and her body was wrapped in a layer of musical notes, as if it had formed a protective wall made of musical notes. But Ling Xiao was in trouble. The illusion of the 1,000 beast blood refining array was broken by Grand Headmaster Chang Yueli, and he also suffered a soul attack. That was the soul attack of a Grotto Heaven realm expert. He actually spat out a mouthful of blood. F***CK, your grandfather Chang Yueli. As Grand Headmaster, you are simply shameless to the extreme. Without any hesitation, Ling Xiao directly cursed at Chang Yueli. Chang Yueli had originally thought that by helping Bai Feifei, Ling Xiao would not dare to say anything even if he was at a disadvantage. However, she had not expected that Ling Xiao, this fellow, would be so audacious that he did not care who the other party was. Whatever he had to say, he would not hold back at all. At that moment, Chang Yueli's old face turned red. Chapter 508. Ling Xiao was still angry. In any case, it would take a while for Bai Feifei to completely wake up from the illusion. You evil creature, how can you talk to me like that? Chang Yueli had long lost her previous calmness. She was so angry that she actually stood up. 18 generations of ancestors. You shameless old man. You're really giving your ancestors face. Shameless and despicable. What a disgrace. Ling Xiao's anger still hadn't subsided. Chang Yueying, this is the good disciple you've accepted. As the Grand Master, Chang Yueli couldn't continue to bicker with Ling Xiao. Instead, she pointed her spear at the Grand Master, Chang Yueying. Master, you're wrong. It's not good for us as seniors to interfere in a fight between juniors. His words were a bit too much, but it's understandable for a child to be so angry. Although Chang Yueying was Chang Yueli's eldest disciple, she was also the Grand Master of Yuehua School. She knew very well what Ling Xiao represented. She definitely wouldn't protect her master because of this matter. Otherwise, her position as the Grand Master wouldn't be stable. What's more, her relationship with her master wasn't very good. Back then, because of the fight for the position of Grand Master, they had already broken off their relationship. In addition, Ling Xiao had the support of the Moon Maiden. Even if she didn't give face to Ling Xiao, she had to give face to the Moon Maiden. Of course, the most important thing was that she also felt that her master had gone too far. Originally, Bai Feifei was being raped by Ling Xiao, but she still went to help. No wonder she was scolded. She deserved it. You're not going to do it, right? Then I'll do it myself. Chang Yueli couldn't command Chang Yueying. She was unable to restrain her anger and released her powerful true essence, attempting to kill Ling Xiao through the array formation of the stage. She was a Grotto Heaven Realm expert. She could crush Ling Xiao like an ant. However, she never thought about why Ling Xiao would be so bold to argue with her. If he didn't have anything to rely on, would Ling Xiao be so stupid? Of course not. In fact, Ling Xiao had already noticed that the Moon Lady had arrived at the scene to watch the battle. Furthermore, she was very angry at Chang Yueli for sneaking an attack on him. Now that Chang Yueli had the intention to kill, how could the Moon Maiden not make a move? Even if the Moon Lady didn't do anything, Ling Xiao could just rebel against Yuehua School. Chang Yueli might be strong, but she was just a layman in array formations. Ling Xiao was proficient in most of the Yuehua School's array formations. It would be easy for her to escape and destroy the Yuehua School's array formations. Chang Yueli, how awe-inspiring! Just as Ling Xiao was thinking about what to do next, the Moon Lady finally spoke. At the same time, an even stronger aura surged towards Chang Yueli. The dignified sect master knelt down in front of almost everyone in the sect. His white hair was in a mess, making him look like a madman. Your Highness, Moon Maiden. Chang Yueli's face turned pale. Back then, when she made a mistake, the Moon Maiden removed her position as sect master and supported Chang Yueying. After so many years, Chang Yueli had almost forgotten how terrifying the Moon Maiden was. And now, this terrifying woman had appeared again, all for an outer sect disciple. She was about to break down. I've said before that Ling Xiao is my disciple. Whoever dares to hurt him will be going against me. Didn't you know? The Moon Maiden was cold and majestic at this moment. Almost all the higher-ups in Yuehua School were trembling in fear. I really didn't know. Please forgive me, Moon Maiden. Chang Yueli was annoyed. She really didn't know about this. Otherwise, today's incident wouldn't have happened. Humph, since you've been well-behaved for so many years, I won't kill you. You can continue to be the sect master. Don't interfere in the sect's affairs in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. The Moon Maiden snorted coldly. I'll do as you say. Chang Yueli gritted her teeth. Her heart was filled with fear and resentment. The Moon Maiden. This woman had humiliated her twice and caused her to fall from the clouds into the abyss. She had to find a way to trample on this woman. Even if it meant betraying Yuehua School, she wouldn't hesitate. The Moon Maiden ignored her and looked at Ling Xiao and Bai Feifei below. The battle between the two of you isn't over yet. Continue. No one will interfere anymore. Thank you, Moon Maiden, for speaking up for us. Ling Xiao smiled and turned to look at Bai Feifei. Bai Feifei had already recovered from the illusion of the 1,000-beast blood refining formation and was focused on the battle again. She was unhappy that the Moon Maiden had taught her master a lesson. Although she didn't dare to say anything to the Moon Maiden, she definitely dared to teach Ling Xiao a lesson. Senior sister, you're really lucky. If it wasn't for that old fart helping you, you would have lost, Ling Xiao said with a smile. Humph. How dare you disrespect the Supreme Sect Master? I won't forgive you. It was just a moment of carelessness. Bai Fei snorted coldly. Hee hee, a moment of carelessness? The battle between the two of us has been going on for a bit too long. I reckon that the spectators are a bit unhappy. I said that it's time to end it, so it must end. Even if the Supreme Elder helps you, it's useless, Ling Xiao said indifferently. Bai Fei didn't know what Ling Xiao was relying on, so she felt a little uneasy. As a half-step heavenly venerable, she actually had such a feeling when facing an early-stage transcendent realm 6th level cultivator. This made her feel very ashamed. She was also very angry. If it wasn't for the spirit array on the battle stage, she believed that she could have killed Ling Xiao in one move. Shameless little bastard, you missed the opportunity just now. You won't have another chance to kill me. Bai Fei tried her best to calm herself down. In fact, these words were just to comfort herself. Oh, is that so? Don't you know that your life is actually in the hands of your junior brother? Ling Xiao's words surprised Bai Fei and the spectators. What's going on? Ling Xiao doesn't look like someone who would speak without thinking. He's probably just bluffing. In any case, I can't see anything. I really can't see through him. Discussions broke out below the stage again. It seemed that every time Ling Xiao made a move, it would cause a big stir. Ha 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 ha. You say you control my life and death? What a stupid statement. Do you think I'll believe you just because you say so? After a moment of surprise, Bai Fei quickly returned to normal and couldn't help laughing. She thought she had exposed Ling Xiao's conspiracy. However, Ling Xiao's next words almost scared her out of her wits. Senior sister, haven't you noticed? What kind of changes have happened to your body? Ling Xiao asked indifferently. Changes? What changes? Don't talk nonsense. Bai Fei was just about to retort when her expression changed drastically. Although she said she didn't believe Ling Xiao, she still checked her body and found that her true qi was being consumed at a terrifying rate. Not only that, but strange green spots had also appeared on her body. You, what did you do to me? How can you be so vicious and insidious? Bai Fei shouted in fright. Chapter 509. Haha, it's actually nothing much. I just embedded a plague bone formation on the battle stage's formation. Ling Xiao said with a smile. The speaker was very relaxed, but the listeners were shocked, especially Shangguan Lei, who had experienced the terror of the plague bone formation. This kid is actually so vicious. Elder Jean could not help but say, Elder Jean, you're wrong. The plague bone formation is a terrifying formation invented by the plague demon king. If Ling Xiao was really vicious, then he could have killed Bai Fei. However, he did not do so, which shows that this kid is still kind. Heavenly Venerable Golden Light retorted. Actually, he was wrong. The reason why Ling Xiao had not killed Bai Fei was purely because he wanted to bring her to Great Master Bai Yun to be dealt with. Otherwise, based on this woman's attitude towards him, he would have long wanted to kill her. With the formation you cast, I don't think it's that strong. As Bai Fei spoke, she was already trying to use her vital essence to force the poison out of her body. That's right, because I don't have all the materials, I can only set up a simplified version of the plague bone formation. If Senior Sister Bai could have discovered it early, perhaps it would have been fine. If you weren't injured and bleeding, it shouldn't be a big problem. Ling Xiao said with a smile. However, an hour has passed since the battle began. Your poison has entered your body through your wound. Moreover, you have activated a large amount of vital essence, causing the poison to take effect faster. If you don't believe me, you can try to circulate your vital essence again. I guarantee that you won't be able to stand up. Bai Fei naturally did not believe Ling Xiao's words. However, the moment she circulated her vital essence, she discovered that the poison had already entered her bone marrow. Fortunately, she was a half-step heavenly venerable. If her cultivation was weaker, she would probably be lying on the ground, unable to move. You, give me the antidote. Bai Feifei was anxious. Don't worry. As Heavenly Venerable Golden Light said, I naturally won't take your life. However, it's very simple to get the antidote. Just admit defeat. Ling Xiao said with a smile, You're delusional. Bai Feifei was so anxious and angry that her heart was about to explode. All right, if that's the case, then let's just wait like this. In any case, the unlucky one will definitely not be me, Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao shrugged and stood there with a smile. You could have defeated me. Why didn't you just do it? Bai Feifei said angrily. Tisk, tsk, tsk. Senior Sister Bai's words are too amateurish. If I were to attack you now, wouldn't that give people the chance to say that I'm taking advantage of you? Ling Xiao said with a smile. Besides, I like to see a proud woman like you lower your noble head in front of me. He said it. Damn, he actually said it out loud. Although I thought about it, I didn't dare to say it. Among the disciples, there were many who had the same idea as Ling Xiao. Looking at those high and mighty female disciples who disdained them, they would all have such thoughts. It was a pity that they were only imagining it in their minds. Ling Xiao did it openly and was completing it step by step. I won't admit defeat, not even if I die. Bai Feifei roared with a ferocious face. Don't worry, this plague poison won't kill you. It will slowly corrode every inch of your skin and make your smooth skin crack inch by inch. In the end, you will become an extremely ugly woman. Ling Xiao smiled and said, Then it will corrode your martial veins and make your 9 martial veins gradually damaged. In the end, you will lose all your cultivation and become a cripple. But you won't die. You can't die even if you want to because this plague poison has a soul. It can stop you from doing that. Well, what's this called? It's called living a life worse than death, right? No. No. I don't want it. I don't want it. I beg you, please give me the antidote. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Bai Feifei broke down. Perhaps she really wasn't afraid of death. After being brainwashed, she obviously wasn't that afraid of death. But as a woman, she was most afraid of her fairy-like beauty becoming extremely ugly. And as a martial artist, she was most afraid of losing all her cultivation and becoming a cripple. She knew very well that if that happened, she would have no place in Yuehua school. Even her master, Chang Yueli, would abandon her. So she had to admit defeat, but she wouldn't let Ling Xiao go. She had to kill Ling Xiao. Once Ling Xiao gave her the antidote, she would kill Ling Xiao. That's right. Won't everything be fine if you admit defeat? Ling Xiao smiled and threw a paper bag to Bai Feifei. There were a few pills inside. Bai Feifei glanced at it and swallowed it without hesitation. Supreme Sect Master, Ling Xiao has already won this battle. Our bet from before still stands, right? Heavenly Lord Golden Light looked at Chang Yueli and asked with a smile, Do I look like someone who goes back on her words? Tell me, what do you want me to do for you? Grand Leader Chang, Yueli asked. If someone wants to kill Ling Xiao, I'll have to trouble you to kill him. That's my request. Heavenly Lord Golden Light thought of many requests, but in the end, he still placed all his bets on Ling Xiao. He believed that as long as Ling Xiao could grow, his disciple, Leng Hao, would definitely be able to grow as well. And he himself would also have a higher status in Yuehua school in the future. What request is this? Chang Yueli was stunned. She thought of many possibilities, but this was the only one she didn't think of. What was this Heavenly Lord Golden Light trying to do? Was he trying to curry favor with the Moon Lady? Grand Leader doesn't agree? Heavenly Lord Golden Light asked. This is just a small matter. However, I've been cultivating in the sect all year round. If he gets hurt outside, I won't be able to do anything. Chang Yueli snorted and said, Besides, you can't expect me to protect him forever, right? That's simple. Grand Leader only needs to protect him until Ling Xiao advances to the celestial realm. Heavenly Lord Goldenlight felt that he couldn't force this old woman too much, so he took a step back and said, "As for Ling Xiao getting into trouble outside, we'll help to find out the identity of the murderer. You just need to do something when the time comes." "All right." Chang Yueli glanced at the auspicious clouds in the sky. At the end of the day, she was still afraid of the Moon Lady. Otherwise, she might not have agreed to this request. In the arena, Bai Feifei was completely dumbfounded. She had thought of killing Ling Xiao after taking the antidote, but now her master actually agreed to such a request. Didn't that mean that once she made a move, she would be killed by her master? No, she couldn't do that. No matter how unhappy Bai Feifei was, she didn't dare to make a move now. Since Ling Xiao also wanted to participate in the pagoda ascension ceremony, she would kill him during the ceremony. Bai Feifei had a plan in mind. Chapter 510. Ling Xiao knew that Bai Feifei hated him to the core, so how could he not take some precautions? Unfortunately, with that stupid woman Bai Feifei's brain, she probably didn't think of this. She really thought he was an idiot. Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao. After the competition ended, the crowd burst into frenzied cheers. Ling Xiao defeated Bai Feifei. An early-stage Transcendent Realm 6th level martial artist defeated a half-step Heavenly Master. This caused a huge reaction among the Yuehua School's disciples, and Ling Xiao suddenly became the most popular one. Of course, there were also people who secretly cursed Ling Xiao for being despicable and shameless for using underhanded means to win the competition. However, such voices were soon drowned out by the cheers. After Ling Xiao defeated Bai Feifei, the selection competition came to an end. After a few more battles, the final 40 spots were finally selected. Together with the 10 seeded contestants, there were a total of 50 people, all of whom were qualified to enter the Moonlight Pagoda. Among the people Ling Xiao knew, Dai Yuling, Zhao Ji, Shangguanlei, Leng Hao, Ming Tian, Bai Feifei, Wu Yang, and Qin Wu, all of whom were qualified. Of course, Zhao Ji really did it because of Ling Xiao's secret help. Otherwise, he would have been eliminated. Because of this, he admired and respected Ling Xiao even more. Among the other 10 seeded contestants, Ling Xiao only knew 2 of them, Xin Tianlin and Tantai Lingzi. The trouble was that he didn't have a good relationship with these 2 people. However, Ling Xiao just frowned slightly and didn't think about it anymore. He had even offended Bai Feifei, and these 2 people were even weaker than Bai Feifei. What was there to be afraid of? At most, he would be more careful after entering the Moonlight Pagoda. Of course, a quota was only a quota. Although there were 50 people who had obtained the opportunity to enter the Moonlight Pagoda, only a few of them would be able to obtain benefits from the Moonlight Pagoda in the end. There were probably no more than 10 of them. In the next 3 days, the sect will be holding a celebration for the Moon Arrival Festival. The 50 of you can have a good rest and prepare yourselves. Gather here again on the morning of the 4th day. If anyone is late, they will not be able to participate in the Tower Ascension ceremony. The dignified and cold voice of Yuehua School's headmaster, Chang Yueying, reverberated throughout the hall. As the sect leader, he really had to have this kind of aura. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to control people. With that, the powerful auras left one after another. Now that the qualification contest had ended, there were naturally people who were happy and people who were sad. Some of the people who didn't get the qualification looked sad, and some even cried bitterly. This was because they knew very well that the earlier they participated in the Tower Ascension ceremony, the more they would be ahead of the other disciples. Senior Brother Ling, I can't thank you enough. If it weren't for you, I definitely wouldn't have gotten this opportunity. Zhao Ji felt like he was in a dream. Among the 50 people, his cultivation level was the lowest. Even among those who were eliminated, there were many who had a higher cultivation level than him. But he actually passed. Of course, other than his hard work, the most important thing was Ling Xiao's help. If it weren't for Ling Xiao, he definitely wouldn't have been able to make it to the end. Becoming friends with Ling Xiao was the wisest thing he had done since he was born. Although he had some conflicts with Ling Xiao when he first joined the sect, it was fortunate that, as a member of the royal family, he was a smart person whose goal was to inherit the throne. He wisely chose not to aggravate these conflicts, and even gradually became closer to Ling Xiao. Although they couldn't be considered life and death friends now, they were absolutely considered very good friends. If not for Ling Xiao secretly giving him pointers on his martial arts and giving him martial arts secret manuals, he really wouldn't have been able to reach this step today. In addition, in today's competition, there were clearly people targeting him, but they were also resolved by Ling Xiao. This kindness was really not something that could be clearly expressed verbally. He would remember it in his heart. Although he had a master too, and this master was even the inner sect hall's hall master, Empyrean Heavenly Eye, his imperial uncle. But Empyrean Heavenly Eye had too many disciples under his command. It was simply impossible to focus on imparting martial arts to him. Ling Xiao was more like his master instead. Dai Yuling's thoughts were actually about the same as Zhao Zi's. Actually, Ling Xiao's kindness to her was much greater than Zhao Zi's. When she was in the outer sect, her martial soul was forcefully crippled by someone. It was even Ling Xiao who helped her take revenge and bestowed her an even stronger martial soul. She smiled bitterly in her heart. Perhaps only by offering this life to Ling Xiao could she repay his kindness. Walking together with them, there was also a Zhao Ci. Zhao Ci's heart was filled with intense unwillingness. She did not understand why Ling Xiao, this unscrupulous fellow, would become stronger and stronger, while she, this kind-hearted person, suffered setbacks time and time again, and was even almost killed by the people she had once helped. She really had some doubts about society now. The outlook on life and worldview that she had always established also collapsed with a loud bang. Of course, the one who was most jealous was probably still Ming Tian. Back then, at Master Baiyun's place, he still firmly suppressed Ling Xiao. But now, Ling Xiao could defeat Bai Feifei. Although Bai Feifei, that dumb woman being too stupid, was the biggest reason. But Ling Xiao's cultivation was actually even stronger than his. This made Ming Tian unable to accept it. The intense flames of jealousy in his heart continuously burned. His 2 eyes even became blood-red in color. Head Elder, I agree to your request. I'm willing to listen to your arrangements and do that thing. Ming Tian looked at Elder Jean and gritted his teeth. Are you sure? Once you do that thing, you will lose your human nature. You might even lose your emotions and become an existence no different from a dire beast. Elder Jean narrowed his eyes and asked, even if I become a dire beast, I want to be stronger than him. Ming Tian nodded heavily. All right, since you've already made your decision, then follow me. After parting ways with Zhao Ji and Dai Yuling, Ling Xiao went to Yang Danlin's place. Because he still did not understand some details about the pagoda ascension ceremony, he needed to ask this old hall master. Ha ha ha, kid, you're really good. You even defeated that girl Bai Feifei. But you have to be careful. What happens inside the Moonlight Pagoda cannot be seen from the outside. Be careful of her secretly harming you. Yang Danlin was laughing heartily at first. He was very happy, but his expression soon became serious. Don't worry about this, Elder Yang. If Bai Feifei obediently doesn't provoke me, nothing will happen to her. Otherwise, when she comes out, she'll be a cripple. Ling Xiao said coldly. Hee, kid, what did you do to her? Forget it. There's no need to talk about the details. It's fine as long as you're safe. Yang Danlin smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, you're here for the details of the Pagoda Ascension ceremony, right? That's right. What will happen during the Pagoda Ascension ceremony? And how will the results be determined? Ling Xiao asked. The Moon Arrival Festival was held once a year. Naturally, the Pagoda Ascension ceremony was also held once a year. Chapter 511. Well, actually, the Moonlight Pagoda is very mysterious. There will be all kinds of scenes and assessment content inside. The situation is different every year, so I can't help you with the specifics. La, Yang Danlin pondered for a moment before adding, "However, the results have always been calculated based on survival time." Survival time? Yes, if you die in the Moonlight Pagoda, you won't really die. Instead, you will be directly sent outside. However, remember, even though you won't really die, your soul will still be severely damaged and won't be able to recover for a month or two. Therefore, try not to die if you can. Yang Danlin explained. Generally speaking, the longer you can stay in the Moonlight Pagoda, the more benefits you will obtain. Therefore, the results are also calculated based on this. I see. Ling Xiao nodded. However, old Yang, even if you won't die, you can still be imprisoned inside, right? Yes, that's possible. There was once a disciple who was imprisoned inside and never came out. Furthermore, the people who went in later never discovered his existence. Yang Danlin replied, "It sounds rather dangerous." Although Ling Xiao said this, there was a smile on his face. Kid, don't mess around. If you can't do something, try not to do it. Many times, don't rashly snatch things just because the rewards are plentiful. You might end up being killed and sent out immediately. Yang Danlin reminded him. Your eyesight is very good, so you should be able to determine whether it is dangerous or not. Never do anything that you can't do. Otherwise, it won't do any good. I understand. Master, do you want to go in with me? Ling Xiao shouted at the Yuan Venerate in the B-string. Of course, I also want to see what this pagoda ascension ceremony is all about, the Yuan Venerate said. Absolutely not, the Yuan Venerate said. Absolutely not. The Moonlight Pagoda is very mysterious. If a powerhouse hides in the B-string, he will be detected by it. Yang Danlin said hurriedly, that will ruin Ling Xiao's pagoda ascension ceremony. Unlucky. Forget it then. The Yuan Venerate was helpless. However, he couldn't joke about his disciple's future just because of his curiosity. Ling Xiao released it from the B-string and handed it over to Yang Danlin for safekeeping. After that, he inquired about some things that needed to be prepared before returning to his cave residence to cultivate. In any case, he still had 3 days. Even if he couldn't make any breakthroughs in his cultivation, he could still make breakthroughs in other aspects. Over the past 3 days, although Ling Xiao's cultivation had not broken through, he had already reached the peak of the early Transcendent Realm's 6th layer, so with a little stimulation, he should be able to break through to the mid-6th layer. Let's leave this matter to the Moonlight Pagoda. However, he had successfully condensed 13 sword soul doppelgangers. He could finally begin to cultivate the shadow form sword technique. In addition, his heavenly dragon divine finger and soul dice had also successfully entered the 4th layer in these 3 days. It could be said that he had left the initial stage and entered the advanced stage. These 2 types of martial arts were relatively special. The heavenly dragon divine finger was most suitable for the human dragon form and the primordial golden dragon form. It was extremely powerful and belonged to the dragon race. The soul dice was a martial art of the soul race. It was a martial art that utilized one's soul power. This would be Ling Xiao's powerful trump card and was best used in conjunction with the martial Dao. 3 days later, Ling Xiao arrived at the inner square early in the morning and waited to enter the Moonlight Pagoda. At this time, the 50 disciples had already gathered. The 10 seated contestants stood in the front row, while the rest lined up behind them. Among the 10 seated contestants, only 2 were core disciples. They were Tantai Lingzi and Shen Tianlin. Tantai Lingzi was ranked 6th, and her true cultivation was at the late 8th layer of the Transcendent Realm. Shen Tianlin was ranked 10th, and his true cultivation was at the early 8th layer of the Transcendent Realm. Of course, there was also Li Zonghao, who had been squeezed out of the top 10 core disciples by Shen Tianlin. His cultivation was also at the early 8th layer of the Transcendent Realm, but in terms of actual combat, he was inferior to Shen Tianlin. However, the one who received the most attention was not these 3 people, but rather Bai Feifei. Although Bai Feifei had lost to Ling Xiao in the competition for a spot, her strength was clear for all to see. Ling Xiao had indeed used some underhanded means to defeat her. Therefore, in the sect, many people were full of expectations for Bai Feifei. They felt that the benefits she would obtain after entering the Moonlight Pagoda would be greater than anyone else's. She might even break the record set by sect Master Chang Yuing and the Flame Deity. Of course, Tantai Lingzi, Xin Tianlin, and Li Zonghao were also placed high hopes on. The two geniuses, Ming Tian and Leng Hao, were also highly anticipated. However, the most difficult person to figure out was Ling Xiao, who was not even an inner court disciple. This guy was weak, but he had defeated the insufferably arrogant Bai Feifei. He was strong, but in fact he had not used any powerful means in the battle. He had relied on some unorthodox methods to win. Therefore, his existence was truly an unknown. Standing in the crowd, Zhao Ji was a little excited. Although he knew that with his strength he might not be able to obtain any good opportunities, as long as he could enter the Moonlight Pagoda, he would definitely be able to obtain some benefits. Even if it was just a little, he would be content. Senior brotherling, after entering the Moonlight Pagoda, you have to be careful. Bai Feifei and Xin Tianlin might not care about an insignificant person like me, but they will definitely target you. Zhao Ji was now worried about Ling Xiao. Thank you for your concern, junior brother Zhao, but it's okay. I know what to do. Ling Xiao smiled and said, after entering, you and Yuling should try to stay close to me. Although I dare not say that I will help you to reach the end, I will at least let the two of you obtain some benefits before coming out. Although the Pagoda Ascension ceremony was a trial for the individual, however, in reality, after entering the Moonlight Pagoda, they could also find ways to cooperate. For Zhao Ji and Dai Yuling, he could only try his best to help them. If it really didn't work, then there was nothing he could do. After all, although there were many opportunities in this Pagoda Ascension ceremony, there were also dangers everywhere. If one was careless, even if one's cultivation was strong enough to reach the 9th heavenly layer transcendent realm, it would be meaningless. When it was time to die, they would still die. Therefore, in fact, he was not optimistic about that stupid woman Bai Feifei at all. So what if she was strong? She was inexperienced and did not know how to be flexible, so it was useless. It seems that senior brotherling has the pearl of wisdom in his hands. I was a little worried. Zhao Ji saw Ling Zhao's confident look and knew that his worries were unnecessary. What he needed to do was to try his best to preserve his life. This was probably the greatest help to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao smiled and did not say anything. He did not know much about the Pagoda Ascension ceremony, but his confidence came from his comprehensive ability. Whether it was strength, cultivation, spirit arrays, alchemy, or the ability to adapt to changes, he was not bad. The Pagoda Ascension ceremony was just a trial, not a suicide mission. Chapter 512. The Pagoda Ascension ceremony was a challenge of opportunity, so it shouldn't be prepared to harm the disciples. It would definitely create many opportunities for survival. Moreover, to Ling Xiao, who had the mountain river martial soul and could see through everything, was it so easy for him to be eliminated? Suddenly, a peerless figure appeared in midair. It was the Moon Maiden. A powerful aura enveloped the entire inner sect square and even enveloped all 50 disciples. Welcome, Your Highness. Under the lead of the sect Master Chang Yuing and the inner sect Hall Master Tianyan, the 50 participants of the Pagoda Ascension ceremony bowed. The Moon Maiden nodded slightly and didn't say anything. Her eyes were fixed on the top of the Moonlight Pagoda, as if she could see through the layers of fog and see what was at the top. After a while, the moonlight in the sky suddenly became very bright and offset the daytime sunlight. It was like a golden thread that enveloped the surroundings of the Moonlight Pagoda. Vaguely, one could see a majestic palace floating in the moonlight. This scene was filled with a mysterious and ancient aura, causing all the disciples to swallow their saliva. Moonlight illuminates the sun. Divine palace appears. Pagoda opens. The Moon Maiden muttered softly. Her voice was very clear because it was infused with a powerful energy. Then she pointed to the sky with both hands, and a stream of true yuan pierced through the clouds and shot into the mysterious palace. At that moment, a voice came from the palace, "Allow!" At the same time, the moonlight that enveloped the Moonlight Pagoda gradually changed. A doorway appeared, and the metal door on the pagoda slowly opened. Everyone was paying attention to the Moonlight Pagoda. However, Ling Xiao's eyes were fixed on the sky. Perhaps only he could see that there were faint figures flashing in the palace, but because it was too far away and there were layers of energy barriers, he couldn't see clearly. However, he was sure of one thing. These people were extremely powerful. Perhaps they could kill the Moon Maiden with a sneeze. Not to mention the higher-ups of the Yuehua school and the disciples who were still ignorant of the world's secrets. The Moonlight Pagoda has opened. The disciples' exclamations forcefully pulled Ling Xiao back from his thoughts. He vaguely felt that this world might be more complicated than he imagined. Become stronger. I must continue to become stronger. Then he would explore the mysteries of the world. What's going on with that palace? What's going on with those people? I have to figure it all out. Thinking of this, he clenched his fists and tried his best to calm himself down before looking at the open door of the Moonlight Pagoda. He couldn't see anything inside, only a glaring light. He guessed that he would only be able to see things clearly after entering. At this moment, the Grand Sect Master, Elder Jean, Heavenly Venerable Golden Light, Heavenly Venerable Heavenly Eye, Heavenly Venerable Wu Go, Wang Han Tianzuan, and many other high-ranking members of the Yuehua school were watching this ceremony from a distance. It seemed like it was just a matter of the disciples' encounters, but in fact it was a secret battle between the higher-ups. Whoever's disciple could obtain a great opportunity would be able to obtain a higher status in Yuehua school. Standing in front of the Moonlight Pagoda, Ling Xiao could feel a powerful force attracting him, urging him to quickly enter. Behind the blinding light was a world where opportunities and dangers coexisted. He didn't care about the battle between the higher-ups. He even felt that it was ridiculous and ignorant. A group of ants fighting endlessly for power and profit. But they were unwilling to look up and see how wonderful the outside world was. Before entering the Moonlight Pagoda, Chang Yueying had something to say to everyone. At this moment, Bai Feifei and Xin Tianlin, who were in the crowd, couldn't hold back their strong expectations. They turned around and glanced at Ling Xiao, who was standing behind them. Bai Feifei's eyes were filled with resentment and anger. Xin Tianlin, on the other hand, was disdainful and impatient. It was as if he was eager to show off to his master and gain merit. Tantai Lingzi, on the other hand, was looking at Ling Xiao with a smile. Ling Xiao couldn't guess what this woman was thinking for the time being. Because he didn't know why she was targeting him, he didn't have the time to investigate. In any case, he just had to be careful. The three of them knew very well that after entering the Moonlight Pagoda, even the Moon Maiden couldn't control them. Although they wouldn't really die after dying in the Moonlight Pagoda, there were many ways to kill people. However, there were many ways to kill a person. As long as he could bind Ling Xiao's soul before he was teleported out, that would be enough. Not to mention, the three of them had special secret scrolls in their hands that could ignore the Moonlight Pagoda's rules. Although the three of them had different thoughts, the idea of Ling Xiao must die was absolutely unified. All right, I've finished speaking. Now, enter the Moonlight Pagoda according to the order. At this moment, Chang Yueying stood to the side and said. Everyone nodded. Then, according to the order, they walked toward the unknown white light one by one and entered the Moonlight Pagoda. The Moon Advent Pagoda Ascension ceremony had officially begun. Ling Xiao stepped into the Moonlight Pagoda. In that instant, from the blinding white light into the darkness, almost everyone's eyes showed different degrees of discomfort. But Ling Xiao didn't. After he entered the Moonlight Pagoda, he closed his eyes and released the true Yuan ball to sense everything around him. This was even more sensitive than his eyes. Feeling that it was about time, he slowly opened his eyes. What entered his eyes wasn't the ground of an ordinary pagoda. The place where they were standing was actually a steel cable bridge. He didn't know how long the bridge was, but he couldn't see the end of it. The bridge was only about 2 meters wide. There were no wooden planks, only some steel cables connecting it. Under the steel cable bridge, there was a surging river, and the waves were turbulent. The moment he opened his eyes, Ling Xiao heard a few cries of agony. 50 disciples participating in the pagoda ascension ceremony. 5 have been eliminated. 45 remain. This was a very cold mechanical voice. It felt like the voice of a mechanical puppet. What? They were eliminated just like that? The disciples who were left behind were also shocked. They hadn't done anything yet, but 5 people had already been eliminated. The Moon Advent Pagoda Ascension ceremony was indeed very difficult. This is the first stage, and also the simplest stage. After passing through the steel cable bridge, the things you encounter may be more difficult than the last. Moreover, everyone's encounter will have different changes. The cold mechanical voice continued to sound. The Moonlight Pagoda will record your performance. The longer you stay inside, the higher your results will be. Of course, the opportunities you encounter, the performance when you encounter danger, and so on are also one of the criteria. However, I must emphasize again, survive. This is the core mission. Survive and you will obtain more. When this cold mechanical voice sounded, no one moved, because everyone wanted to listen carefully to the rules. Chapter 513. Ling Xiao suddenly felt a dangerous aura behind him. It was Bai Feifei. This stupid woman, she hasn't even figured out what's going on yet. She wants to start a fight here. Yu Ling, Zhao Ji, you two go first. I'll play with senior sister Bai. Just as he finished speaking, Ling Zhao's expression suddenly changed, and he activated Cloud Dragon Divine Travel, grabbing Zhao Ji and Dai Yuling at the same time. Seeing him run away like this, everyone was stunned. Just as everyone was puzzled, a huge python suddenly opened its maw and bit down on them from the turbulent river. The position this python was in was exactly where Ling Xiao had been standing before. Run! There's a python! At this time, many people had already discovered the python. In fact, this python wasn't very strong, at most a 5th-order vicious beast. Even a 5th-order, transcendent realm cultivator should be able to deal with it. However, this python's body was too big, and coupled with its sudden attack, it caused the cultivators to panic, none of them even thinking of fighting back. As a result, 7 or 8 more disciples were swallowed in one gulp, declared dead, and teleported out of the Moonlight Treasure Pagoda. 50 participants in the Tower Ascension ceremony. 12 failed, leaving 38 people. The cold voice sounded again, causing the hearts of all the youths present to thump. They hadn't even passed the first stage yet, but only 38 people were left, and listening to the cold voice, the further they went, the more difficult it would become. What should they do next? Many people had already lost confidence in themselves. In a panic, everyone rushed to the other side of the steel cable bridge. But because of the crowd and mutual hostility, another person was pushed off the steel cable bridge and fell directly into the surging river. 37 people remain. Perhaps it was to increase the pressure on the cultivators who were participating in the Tower Ascension ceremony. But every time someone failed, the cold voice would directly report it. Many thanks, Senior Brotherling. Zhao Ji stood at the bridge, still in a state of shock. If Ling Xiao hadn't noticed the danger in time and brought him to the bridge, he would likely have died. No need. It's just a matter of convenience. Ling Xiao's attitude was very clear. If he could help, he would do it. But if he couldn't even take care of himself, then he wouldn't meddle in other people's business. Ling Xiao, you damned bastard. Why didn't you warn us when you discovered the danger? Shen Tianlin, who had rushed to the bridgehead, roared furiously. What a joke! As a true disciple, could it be that you are inferior to me? Why didn't you remind everyone? Ling Xiao sneered. You! Shen Tianlin's face turned red. but he couldn't say anything. If he said that he didn't sense any danger, it would mean that he wasn't as good as Ling Xiao. However, if he were to say that he had discovered the danger, that would be equivalent to slapping his own face. It was neither left nor right. Everyone listen up. After crossing the steel cable bridge, I'm afraid there will be greater dangers. Although I don't know what dangers there are, it's best for everyone to be careful. That's all. Ling Xiao had already felt that after crossing the steel cable bridge, there was an aura even more terrifying than the giant serpent locking onto them. However, he didn't know what it was for the time being. The Moonlight Pagoda was too magical. If many things didn't appear, even Ling Xiao wouldn't be able to detect them. He could only sense a trace of their aura. Jie. As soon as he finished speaking, an ear-piercing cry suddenly rang out in the sky. Then the terrifying and dangerous aura was getting closer and closer. Jie! That sound rang out again. Everyone noticed that the sound came from the pitch-black sky, but they couldn't see anything. This terrifying and oppressive feeling was really unbearable. What's going on? Bai Feifei also forgot to deal with Ling Xiao at this time. Just now, when she was dealing with Ling Xiao, even she had almost been plotted against, so she had learned her lesson. What on earth was it? This was the question on everyone's mind. Ling Xiao looked up at the sky. His black pupils instantly turned golden. At that moment, his face changed, and then he grabbed Zhao Ji and Dai Yuling and continued to flee forward. After passing the steel cable bridge, there was a dense forest. It was still pitch black, and they couldn't even see their own fingers. However, for these transcendent realm cultivators, they could still see, but their field of vision wasn't as wide as it was during the day. Including Bai Feifei, Tantai Lingzi, and Shen Tianlin, all they could see was a dark shadow. Only Ling Xiao could see very clearly. That thing wasn't easy to deal with, so running away was the best option. Senior brotherling, let us down. If we keep relying on you, we'll lose the opportunity to train. Zhao Ji suggested. Idiot, this is a place to search for opportunities, not a place for you to cultivate. Outside, I naturally won't interfere with you. But here, if we can help each other, it's better to help each other. It's just that I have some extra strength now. When greater danger strikes, and I can't even take care of myself. Even if you want me to help, I won't even bother to do it. Ling Xiao said coldly as he ran. Among these people, the smartest were Tantai Lingzi and Lung Hao. When the two saw Ling Xiao running, they turned around and followed without hesitation. Shangguan Lei ran purely out of trust for Ling Xiao. Some other people also habitually followed him. Bai Feifei, that stupid woman, didn't run away. Ming Tian didn't run away either. Shen Tianlin also stood there. It was close. They could see it clearly. In the sky, a huge rock stretched its huge wings and rushed towards them. The rock stretched out its wings, which were more than 20 meters wide. With a flap of its wings, a gust of wind blew, causing people to tremble in fear. Black-winged great rock. How can there be such a terrifying beast here? This is a peak grade 8 vicious beast. Even a 9th layer transcendent realm cultivator has to be wary of it. Shin Tianlin frowned and turned to leave. Who cares if it's a black-winged great rock? Just kill it. Bai Feifei didn't want to run anymore. When they encountered the giant python just now, because it happened so suddenly, she couldn't react in time and ran away. But now, she didn't want to run anymore. She was a half-step heavenly venerable. How could she be afraid of a peak grade 8 vicious beast? So, after saying that, she had already flown up. Senior sister, don't. Shen Tianlin called out, but it was too late. Boom! Bai Feifei collided with the black-winged great rock. However, things didn't develop as Bai Feifei thought. She originally thought that she could kill this bird with one punch, but the result was that she was sent flying and hit the ground. The black-winged great rock's body only shook and paused for a moment. How is this possible? Bai Feifei couldn't believe such a result. Senior sister, let's go quickly. That black-winged great rock seems to have a special array on its body that can make it stronger. Even the Moonlight Treasure Pagoda is helping it. It's too dangerous to fight it. Shin Tianlin ran over and said, "Damn it, it's an array again. I hate arrays the most." After saying that, Bai Feifei still ran forward unwillingly. Chapter 514. Bai Feifei and Shin Tianlin were very fast, while Ling Xiao was carrying two people. Naturally, he was much slower and was overtaken in an instant. "Senior brother Ling, don't worry about us. The black-winged rock is catching up." Zhao Ji exclaimed. Ling Xiao put Zhao Ji and Dai Yuling on the ground, but suddenly stopped. Looking at the disciples who had run past him and were already far away, a smile appeared on his face. "Senior brother Ling, you're not going to fight with the black-winged rock, are you?" Zhao Ji was startled. Dai Yuling was also confused. "Junior brother Zhao, your martial soul is too weak. With your strength, you probably won't be able to go too far in the pagoda ascension ceremony. So how about I help you obtain the black-winged rock martial soul inheritance?" Ling Xiao said with a smile. "Senior brother Ling, don't joke around. Even Bai Feifei was at a disadvantage. Can you do it?" Zhao Ji smiled bitterly. "Just tell me if you're willing or not." "Yes, of course I'm willing. If Senior brother Ling can help me, then I will definitely thank you." Zhao Ji nodded. "That's good. If that stupid woman Bai Feifei can't do it, I might be able to." Ling Xiao smiled. In fact, he had already begun to analyze the black-winged rock while escaping. This was because he felt that the pagoda ascension ceremony was held to create opportunities for the Yuehua school's disciples to become stronger. Therefore, it was absolutely impossible for them to do such a thing. In other words, although the black-winged rock seemed dangerous, it was actually an opportunity. Through the analysis of the mountain and river martial soul, he was sure that the black-winged rock had the black-winged rock martial soul inheritance. If he gave it to Zhao Ji, then Zhao Ji's cultivation aptitude would not lose to Lung, Hao, and Ming Tian. He would definitely be a great help to him in the future. Unlike now, he could only be a burden to him. Ling Xiao could not always face many enemies alone. He also needed help. And the person who obtained the black-winged rock's opportunity must have knowledge of formations. It just so happened that Ling Xiao had it. It was no wonder that the cultivators who had entered the Moonlight Pagoda to participate in the trials were useless, no matter how strong they were. Now, it seemed that the Moonlight Pagoda wanted all-rounders, and not just pure strength. "You guys stay here and don't move. I'll be right back." Ling Xiao figured out the crux of the matter, so he didn't clash head-on with the black-winged rock. He leaped up and used his speed to appear on the black-winged rock's back. The bird tried to shake him off, but to no avail. Instead, Ling Xiao easily found a mechanism and poured his true essence into it. Pa! With a soft sound, the originally incomparably ferocious black-winged rock actually turned into a mass of phantoms, trapped in a ball of light. "Junior brother Zhao, catch!" Ling Xiao landed on the ground and directly injected the ball of light into Zhao Ji's body. He then extracted Zhao Ji's martial spirit and fed it to the mountain and river martial spirit as nourishment. The mountain and river martial spirit, which was about to level up, finally leveled up and entered the second stage of the complete soul, transparent body. It wasn't that Zhao Ji's martial spirit was very powerful, but the key was that he was just short of the last bit of martial spirit energy. Zhao Ji felt the black-winged rock's martial spirit in his body constantly surging with energy. He was both excited and incomparably astonished. He was actually more and more impressed by the young man beside him who was younger than him. To this extent, he had even surpassed his father and his master. Not only did Ling Xiao have the ability to calmly analyze things, but he also had the spirit of daring to take risks. These seemingly contradictory characteristics actually appeared in the same person at the same time. It was truly inconceivable. What shocked him the most was that Ling Xiao had never failed in anything he wanted to do. It was as if he had carefully calculated everything before doing it. I reckon that there will be a lot of danger later on. Let's walk slowly. Along the way, you can wholeheartedly control the black-winged rock's martial spirit. With me around, no one can hurt you. Ling Xiao laughed. I will never forget your great kindness. Zhao Ji already had a plan. He was already very satisfied with obtaining the black-winged rock's martial spirit. Although there might be other good things if they continued, he was very clear. If he didn't rely on Ling Xiao, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Therefore, he planned that if Ling Xiao needed it later, he could directly use his death to repay Ling Xiao's kindness. In any case, he wouldn't really die if he died here. It was just right to give up the opportunity to help Ling Xiao. There was nothing wrong with that. About 2 hours later, Ling Xiao, Zhao Ji, and Dai Yuling met Lung Hao and Tantai Lingzi on the way. These two people looked at them strangely, as if they had a lot of questions. Brother Ling, where's the black-winged rock? Why is there no movement? Lung Hao asked. After the quota competition, Lung Hao was very respectful to Ling Xiao and would always call him Brother Ling. I killed it. Ling Xiao said casually. Killed it? Both Lung Hao and Tantai Lingzi looked shocked. However, they didn't have the slightest doubt, because Ling Xiao indeed had this ability. With Brother Ling's strength, it's impossible for him to be a match for the black-winged rock. Then, you must have won through some special means, right? Lung Hao asked. This brat was indeed not stupid. Ling Xiao glanced at Tantai Lingzi, smiled, and said, Senior Sister Tantai, aren't you going to continue on your way? He could tell Lung Hao, but he didn't want Tantai Lingzi to know. Tantai Lingzi glanced at Ling Xiao and smiled faintly, obviously a little unhappy. However, Ling Xiao wasn't willing to help her, so wasn't it her fault for having an inexplicable hostility towards Ling Xiao? She turned and left unwillingly, because now she still didn't want to fight with Ling Xiao. Before she got what she wanted, she wouldn't take any risks. Lung Hao, the Moonlight Pagoda, is in a dangerous place. Everything that appears here may seem dangerous on the surface, but they all have special meanings. Ling Xiao reminded, Don't be fooled by the surface. That black-winged rock may seem dangerous, but it's actually an opportunity. Its weakness is those who understand formations and formations. You also have to understand your own strengths. Only then will you be able to reap the benefits. He helped Lung Hao because Lung Hao was the only disciple of Heavenly Venerable Golden Light. He was indebted to Heavenly Venerable Golden Light. Secondly, this brat Lung Hao wasn't obsessed. This brat's attitude towards him had undergone a fundamental change, so he was also one of the people he could rope in. Thank you for your guidance, Brother Ling. Lung Hao clasped his hands. You're welcome. Ling Xiao smiled and said, Your master has helped me a lot, so it's only right that I help you. Number of survivors, 33. Just as the two of them were walking and chatting, the cold voice suddenly sounded again. Another 4 people were eliminated? Lung Hao frowned. That's normal. Let's be careful. There should be more danger ahead. Ling Xiao reminded them, and then continued forward. Lung Hao, Zhao Ji, and Dai Yuling all took out high-grade True Origin pills to replenish their true origin. However, Ling Xiao didn't do so. His true origin was almost completely depleted and was very sufficient. Chapter 5:15. The group of 4 continued forward. After walking for a while, they found huge footprints on the road ahead. Each of these footprints was 5 to 6 meters long and 2 to 3 meters wide. It felt like a terrifying monster. Ling Xiao squatted on the ground to check the footprints and analyzed. It's a boulder monster, a level 9 low-tier fierce beast. Its defense is amazing. Those people should have died in its hands. You can even tell. Lung Hao asked in surprise. Senior Brother Lung, you're making a fuss about nothing. Senior Brother Ling's ability is more than that. The more contact you have with him, the more you will find him terrifying. Zhao Ji said with a smile. Leng Hao nodded and did not refute. He had almost no contact with Ling Xiao before, but he had already found out since the start of the quota competition. Ling Xiao, this person, was simply too shocking. Perhaps it was, as Zhao Ji said, this person had many abilities that he did not know. Senior Brother Ling, are we still going forward? Will we encounter that boulder monster directly? Zhao Ji asked. Don't worry. Every time this boulder monster kills a group of people, it will pause for a quarter of an hour. Those people just died for only 2 to 3 minutes. Let's speed up. It should be fine. Ling Xiao stood up and increased his speed as he rushed forward. Leng Hao, Dai Yuling, and Zhao Ji followed behind. Zhao Ji found that after inheriting the black-winged rock martial soul, his speed had obviously improved a lot. He was even faster than Dai Yuling. But after 3 to 4 minutes, they saw a huge boulder monster standing in the middle of the road. Ling Xiao tried to attack it and said with a smile, "As I expected, when it's not moving, it's almost invincible. It's impossible to defeat. Let's continue." Flying under the boulder monster's crotch, the four suddenly saw a group of people in front of them. They seemed to be looking at something. They stopped and looked from the crowd. It turned out to be a coffin, an open bronze coffin. The coffin was very big, more than 10 meters long. However, there was no one lying in it. There were only a few things placed quietly. There were about 100 upper-tier spirit stones, which were extremely precious. There was also a cauldron. Anyone with a slightly better eyesight could tell that it was an immortal-grade treasure. That cauldron should be used to refine pills, which was extremely useful to Ling Xiao. Beside the bronze cauldron, there were a few gourds. After the gourds tipped over, a few pills rolled out. A top-grade true elemental Dan. That was a low yellow-grade medicinal pill. Beside the gourd, there was a book. It looked tattered, and he guessed that it was a jade-grade martial art. After all, he hadn't read the content, so he couldn't make a judgment. The coffin was wide open, less than 10 meters away from everyone. Everyone's eyes were filled with greed. However, no one moved. 2 to 3 meters away from them, there was a corpse. It was the corpse of a martial artist who had participated in the Tower Ascension ceremony. Although this warrior had already been teleported outside, he would still exist in the form of a corpse inside. This was a bit interesting. The strength of this corpse was around the transcendent realm 4th layer, not weak at all. But according to the other disciples, he had only managed to walk 2 or 3 meters before suddenly dying. No one had seen how he died. It would be great if there was no danger. If we can obtain the things in this coffin, our opportunity would be better than that of Sect Master Chang Yuing and the Flame Deity. Idiot, how could it be so easy? If it was so easy, how could people as powerful as the Sect Master and the Flame Deity only obtain such an opportunity? But the thing inside the coffin might be a top gold grade martial art or even a jade grade martial art. And that bronze cauldron, it's obviously not an ordinary item. At the very least, it should be an immortal grade artifact. In the midst of the discussion, Tantai Lingzi, Ming Tian, and Shin Tianlin were somewhat tempted. After all, for them, if they obtained such a good thing, it would mean that this Tower Ascension ceremony would end smoothly. Even if they couldn't obtain anything later, it would be enough to satisfy them. Ling Xiao's judgment was the same as these people's. It might be dangerous, but it was also full of opportunities. Senior Brother Ling, if I go to die, can you see the flaws or loopholes and get those things? Zhao Ji transmitted his voice to Ling Xiao. Of course, that's not a problem, but do you really plan to do so? Ling Xiao asked in surprise. Anyway, I have already obtained the black-winged rock martial soul, so I need to concentrate on my cultivation. Otherwise, I will miss the best time to cultivate. Since I'm going to die, of course, I have to die meaningfully. Zhao Ji smiled. Well then, let's split the things we get. Ling Xiao transmitted his voice. Zhao Ji didn't argue about this matter. After he went out, he didn't want it. If he argued here, the giant stone monster would wake up. Okay, I'm going. Zhao Ji took a deep breath and directly walked over to the coffin. Then, a black shadow faintly appeared behind him. It was a black rock with a terrifying aura. Suddenly, Zhao Ji's figure flashed and rushed to the coffin at his fastest speed. He wanted to make his death meaningful, so he had to come into contact with the coffin. Otherwise, it wouldn't be meaningful. Although he had a flying tight martial soul and couldn't fly, it greatly increased his speed. In addition, he used all his true essence on his movement technique and didn't care about anything else. His speed had reached his limit. However, even so, after crossing 6 meters, he still fell down. Senior Brother Ling, I'll take my leave first. A white light flew away from his body. That should be the real person who was teleported out. The corpse left in the Moonlight Pagoda was probably condensed using some illusion technique. The number of survivors is 32. The cold voice sounded again. This kid is really crazy. Lung Hao smiled bitterly. Not only is he crazy, but he's also an idiot. Shin Tianlin sneered. Idiot? Who's the idiot? Ling Xiao glanced at Shen Tianlin and suddenly rushed to the coffin. No one thought that Ling Xiao would watch Zhao Ji be killed and still dare to do so. This Ling Xiao is the real crazy. Is this guy's brain flooded with water? Bai Feifei also felt incredulous. Ming Tian's eyes widened. This junior brother of his had always acted in a way that others could not see through. However, what he did today was still too unexpected. He's fine. Ling Xiao stood steadily on top of the coffin, and there was nothing unusual about it. Ha, I understand. When Zhao Ji went over, he must have cracked the dangerous mechanism. This Ling Xiao is really cunning. As he spoke, 2 figures dashed over in an attempt to snatch the treasures. However, the number of survivors is 30. Those 2 reckless idiots died inexplicably after walking for 2 meters. What the hell is going on? Ling Xiao, how did you do it? Bai Feifei questioned. What a joke. My good brother, Zhao Ji, risked failure to open up a path for me. Do you want to take advantage of it? Chapter 516. Hand over the things you got, or I'll kill her. Suddenly, Bai Feifei appeared behind Dai Yuling in an instant and grabbed Dai Yuling's neck with one hand. Ling Xiao sneered, You idiot woman, so what if I kill her? She won't really die here. When the time comes, I'll just share the things I get with Dai Yuling, and you will go to hell. Humph. I have a magic treasure that can imprison the soul. I can make her really die here. Bai Feifei shouted. Oh, is that so? Then try it. I want to see if you, Bai Feifei or Dai Yuling, will die first. Ling Xiao calmly packed up the things in the coffin. He didn't look at the other things carefully. Anyway, the pill cauldron was better than he imagined. It was actually a divine treasure. Its name was Myriad Spirit Cauldron. Although it didn't have any offensive effects, but with this thing it would be easier for him to refine high-quality pills in the future. In a sense, compared to those magic treasures used for attacking, it was more outstanding. Bai Feifei hesitated, looking at Ling Xiao's calm demeanor. She really didn't dare to act rashly. Senior Sister Bai, let's forget about it. There must be better things waiting for us in front. Why bother with him for those things? Shangguan Lei stood up to smooth things over. This was equivalent to giving Bai Feifei a way out. Otherwise, once they made a scene, it was really unknown what would happen. No. Ling Xiao, did you do something to me? Bai Feifei, this stupid woman's brain was bright. So what if I did? You are so sinister and vicious, woman. If I don't guard against you, won't I be killed by you? Ling Xiao sneered. But don't worry, after the pagoda ascension ceremony is over, I will naturally help you get rid of these troubles. You won't dare to go back on your words. Otherwise, I swear that I will kill you and everyone around you. Bai Feifei thought about a lot of things in an instant. In the end, she gave up on holding Dai Yuling hostage, because if she really killed Dai Yuling, it would probably be hard for her to escape death. Ling Xiao, this brat, was too cunning. She did not dare to not believe his words. Seeing Bai Feifei let go of Dai Yuling, Ling Xiao put away everything and returned to the main road. In that instant, as many as 5 attacks came from different directions. Ling Xiao snorted coldly. With a gentle wave of his right hand, 5 streaks of sword light shot out, piercing the throats of the 5 people before returning to his world of mountains and rivers. The imperial sword technique was very useful in dealing with such a sneak attack. Its speed was fast and its lethality was great. It was simply too wonderful for words. 25 survivors. Less than a day had passed since the start of the Tower Ascension ceremony, but half of the people had already been eliminated. Of course, these 5 fellows who were targeting Ling Xiao did not fail because of the checkpoint, but because of their greed. Is there anyone else who wants to make a move? Ling Xiao looked at the surrounding people coldly and asked nonchalantly. The martial artists who originally planned on attacking together all gave up such a plan at this time. Ling Xiao, this fellow, was very strong. They had to wait until he was trapped or injured before they could make a move. The giant stone monster is about to wake up. Let's go. Ling Xiao gave Dai Yuling a glance, then rushed forward. Outside the Moonlight Pagoda, at the entrance, many people had already gathered. Because too many people were eliminated, this really made people feel that it was too abnormal. Swoosh! Suddenly, 5 figures were directly thrown out of the Moonlight Pagoda. Another 5 eliminated. Qin Jiwang frowned and muttered to herself. The other upper echelon's expressions were not too good either. This time, the Moon Lady deliberately increased the number of people entering the Moonlight Pagoda. But who knew that only half of them were eliminated so quickly? What was the point of this increase in numbers? What happened? How did the 5 of you get eliminated? Elder Jean asked in a cold voice. It's Ling Xiao. One of them said with righteous indignation. Ling Xiao, that fellow ambushed us. That's right. That person is too despicable. He saw that we obtained good things and ambushed us from behind when we weren't paying attention, snatching our things. Another person said, Bastard, vile spawn, beast, scum of the sect. For a moment, several voices cursing Ling Xiao sounded out. It was none other than the Grand Sect Master, and Elder Jin sighed. Everyone, why are you so agitated? It's merely a one-sided story. The Inner Sect Hall Master Empyrean Heavenly I slowly said. This seat's disciple, Zhao Ji, was delighted to obtain the black-winged rock martial soul. It was given to him by Ling Xiao. If this Ling Xiao has such a character, why would he give my disciple such a precious thing? Because of Zhao Ji, the originally neutral Empyrean Heavenly, I also started to have a favorable impression of Ling Xiao and did not believe these 5 people's words. That's right. The 5 of you still haven't confessed the truth. What in the world is going on? Empyrean Goldenlight shouted angrily. What he disliked the most was the guilty party complaining first. 2 Empyreans, what we said is all the truth. Otherwise, with the strength of the 5 of us, how could we possibly be eliminated so easily? Obstinate in going about things the wrong way. Empyrean Heavenly I gave a cold snort. His right hand's index finger and middle finger joined together, lightly pointing at his vertical eye. After that, a ray of white light shot out from the vertical eye. The events that these 5 disciples experienced were displayed one by one in front of everyone. Humph! Indeed, the guilty party complaining first. Elder Jean, what else do you have to say? Empyrean Heavenly, I looked at Elder Jean and asked, You're the head seat of the Law Enforcement Hall. How should you deal with this kind of disciple who attempted to harm fellow disciples and even complained first, obstinate in going about things the wrong way? Come, men, cripple the 5 of their cultivations and expel them from the sect. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Elder Jean had no way of shielding these 5 fools either. With a word of command, there were long ago law enforcement disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall who came forward and crippled the 5 people's cultivations. No matter how those 5 fools pleaded for help, it was to no avail. Naturally, Elder Jean hated Ling Xiao to the core in his heart. And those sect upper echelons who cursed Ling Xiao previously all shut their mouths and did not say a word either. On this matter, they really lost too much face. Inside the Moonlight Treasure Pagoda, Ling Xiao and the rest fled into a medicinal garden overflowing with fragrance in order to shake off the pursuit of the giant stone monster. The enormous medicinal garden occupied a full several thousand miles in radius. One could not see the edge at a glance at all. Auspicious clouds of all kinds of colors shrouded the sky. Looking into the distance, it actually seemed like one rainbow after another. Remnant numbers: 23 people. Another 2 people were smacked to death by the giant stone monster. That giant stone monster also temporarily entered a state of recuperation. Everyone stood in the medicinal garden, attempting to use this opportunity to see if they could obtain some benefits in this medicinal garden or not. In the center of the medicinal garden, there was a towering tree. On the tree grew strange fruits. On the ground, there were even some strange-looking medicinal herbs. Although the people who recognized these things were not many, just the kind of spiritual energy released from them was sufficient to make people endlessly agitated. Chapter 517. That's a longevity fruit. It can increase one's lifespan by 100 years. Although everyone can only eat one in their lifetime, it's still a hot topic outside. Someone recognized the fruit growing on the tree. Novel. One had to know that even a transcendent realm cultivator could only live for about 200 years. If it could increase one's lifespan by 100 years, it would be a lot. It was equivalent to the lifespan of a heaven realm cultivator. Pung. Finally, someone couldn't resist the huge temptation of the longevity fruit and tried to break in. However, when he hit the 7-colored clouds, not only was his body bounced back, but countless colorful lights suddenly flew out from the 7-colored clouds and directly turned this disciple into a hornet's nest. The 7-colored lights were extremely fast, not inferior to Ling Xiao's flying sword. It could be said that among the cultivators present, not many could block it. 22 people remain. Another person had been eliminated. This caused the people standing outside the rainbow clouds to hesitate once more. They were all considering whether or not there was a need to barge in for the longevity fruit and waste this trial opportunity. Ling Xiao pulled out the angry wind sword with a clang. This was a treasure artifact he bought in the Divine Weapon Hall. It could be used to complement his 12 Golden Lotus Arts Wind celestial phenomenon. Wind originally possessed the most terrifying cutting attribute. In addition, the angry wind sword could double the power of his wind attribute True Qi and increase his attack speed by 20%. It also came with the special skill Angry Wind Shuttle, which condensed the power of wind into a shuttle. It was very terrifying. Presumably, tearing apart the 7-colored clouds shouldn't be a problem. The surrounding people looked at Ling Xiao, the madman. He dared to do something that others didn't dare to try. Without any hesitation, Ling Xiao swung his sword and slashed at the rainbow clouds. A terrifying tearing sound rang out. It was as if a small hole had been cut open in the 7-colored auspicious clouds. However, at that moment, several rays of light shot towards him, trying to kill him and eliminate him. Ling Xiao used the Cloud Dragon Divine Journey and easily avoided these rays of light. Just now, he had already analyzed it. Although the multicolored light was fast, it was very direct. Therefore, as long as he controlled his body well, he could completely avoid it. What an interesting thing. It's actually a cloud formed by a mixture of energy and metal elements. Its defense is quite strong, but Ling Xiao smiled faintly and suddenly stabbed out with his sword again. Wind celestial phenomenon, raging winds. Ling Xiao, there's no need for you to waste your effort. This rainbow auspicious cloud isn't something that your lousy sword can cut open. Xin Tianlin's words came to an abrupt halt. Because of the shocking scene in front of him, he couldn't say the rest of his words. The raging wind sword in Ling Zhao's hand condensed the power of celestial phenomenon into the shape of a shuttle, directly piercing through the 7-colored auspicious clouds and instantly enlarging the gap by a lot. Although the gap was trying its best to heal itself, Ling Zhao's speed was simply too fast. Whoosh! When the gap was completely closed, he was already inside the 7-colored auspicious clouds. Bastard, how can he go in? Shen Tianlin's eyes were as wide as copper bells. He was simply shocked and angry. If this little brat can go in, so can I. Bai Feifei secretly said in her heart. Then she condensed her true essence on her long sword and followed Ling Zhao's method to penetrate the 7-colored auspicious clouds and enter the medicine garden. After all, she was a half-step heavenly venerable. As long as she mastered the method, it wouldn't be difficult for her to enter. After that, a total of 10 people, including Tantai Lingzi, Ming Tian, Xin Tianlin, Li Zonghao, Wu Yang, and Qin Wu, entered one after another. Among these people, except for Ming Tian, were all cultivators above the transcendent realm's 7th level. Ming Tian's situation was a little strange. A strange inscription appeared on his forehead. No one knew what it meant. In any case, this guy was only arrogant and irritable before, but now he gave off a cold and terrifying aura. Lang Hao, Dai Yuling, Shang Guanlei, and the others could only wait outside helplessly. They couldn't enter, and there was nothing they could do. The situation in the medicine garden was a little strange because it was too quiet. After Ling Xiao entered, he didn't act rashly. Instead, he opened the true essence ball to observe the situation around him. Although the longevity fruit was less than 100 meters away from him, he knew very well that he couldn't eat hot tofu if he was impatient. What if he lost his life because of carelessness? That would be really miserable. Meridian strengthening grass. Ling Xiao suddenly sped up. About 4 or 5 meters away from him, there were 4 or 5 strange herbs. They were dark green in color and had no flowers. Generally, they only had 9 leaves. Not one less, not one more. Therefore, they were also called 9-leaf grass. People in the secular world didn't understand the preciousness of the meridian strengthening grass. They just regarded it as a beautiful symbol. However, they didn't know that each of the 9 leaves of the meridian strengthening grass was similar to a cultivator's martial vein. Even the way the spirit qi inside it circulated was exactly the same. If this meridian strengthening grass was sold at the Yuehua School's market, it could be sold for tens of thousands of low-grade spirit stones. If it was refined into a meridian strengthening pill with auxiliary materials, the price could be increased by 10 times. It could reach a total of 100,000 low-grade spirit stones. Most importantly, you might not be able to buy it even if you wanted to. For a cultivator in the mystic world, the most fundamental thing was the 9 martial veins. Once there was a problem with the martial veins, the best-case scenario would be that one couldn't use true core strength. The worst-case scenario would be that one would become a cripple. The most wonderful thing about the meridian strengthening pill was that it could not only repair the damage to the martial veins, but it could also strengthen the martial veins so that they wouldn't be easily damaged. TSK, I didn't expect to find 1,000-year-old meridian strengthening grass here. This is already enough to refine a low-grade, yellow-grade pill. Another type of flawless grade pill can be refined. Not bad, not bad. Although Ling Zhao's martial veins were stronger than ordinary cultivators, they were still very fragile. This was because martial veins were the weakness of all cultivators. However, it was also the most important part. Just like a mortal's heart, it was obviously very fragile, but it was the most important part of a mortal's body. Once it was damaged, the consequences would be unimaginable. Keep. Ling Xiao waved his hand and stored a total of 5 meridian strengthening grasses into the mountain river world. After this trial was over, he would collect the materials and refine the meridian strengthening pill. With the myriad spirit cauldron, not only would the success rate be higher, but the quality of the pills would also be better. After collecting the meridian strengthening grasses, Ling Xiao was about to continue walking forward when he suddenly heard exclamations from behind him. I didn't know before coming in, but every herb here is no worse than the longevity fruit. Yeah, it's so brilliant that it's dazzling. It turned out that Bai Fei and the others had followed him in. When they saw the scene inside, they were all excited, their faces filled with joy. Hurry up! We can't let that little brat Ling Xiao snatch the longevity fruit. Let's go get the longevity fruit first. The 3 seventh-layer transcendent realm disciples glanced at each other. Regardless of what Bai Fei and the others were doing, greed had already taken over their bodies. Chapter 5:18. The 3 men who rushed out did not have any of Ling Xiao's calmness and caution. They were like perverts who had seen a sexy beauty and pounced on her without any regard for their lives. Novel, la-ah. When the 3 of them were less than 10 meters away, 2 of them screamed. Their hearts were pierced by the leaves that suddenly came out from the ground, and they died on the spot. The number of survivors is 20. When the cold voice sounded, the crowd realized it. Although the so-called experience could bring many benefits, if you wanted to get a benefit, you had to bear the danger. Out of 50 people, only 20 were left. It was really quite miserable. Fortunately, they were not really dead. Otherwise, the Yuehua school would have suffered a great loss this time. The 3rd person who rushed out hurriedly ran over. When he looked carefully, he found that it was a blade of grass that attacked him from behind. That's the mad bloodgrass. Although it's a plant, it has the characteristics of a ferocious beast, which is equivalent to a late-stage level 9 ferocious beast. Its leaves are as sharp as swords and can easily destroy a fine-grade precious weapon. Moreover, it's highly poisonous. Once touched, you'll be eliminated. Ling Xiao's voice sounded slowly. If you don't want to live, you can try. Anyway, I don't have any objections. Ah! Finally, the disciple who was exhausted from running for his life also screamed and was eliminated. Although his skin was only grazed by the leaves of the grass, he was still poisoned and died. Then he was eliminated. In an instant, his body turned into a pile of thick blood, which looked extremely disgusting. Senior sister, what should we do? There's a mad bloodgrass beside the longevity fruit tree. Among these people, I'm afraid you're the only one who can deal with it, right? Shen Tianlin looked at Bai Fei and asked desperately. There were 5 longevity fruits in total. He believed that if Bai Fei could get one, he could get one. What can I do? The mad bloodgrass is highly poisonous. It's useless even if I'm strong. I'll still die, won't I? No matter how stupid Bai Fei was, she couldn't help but want to retreat when she saw the mad bloodgrass. The mad bloodgrass is coming. Suddenly, Li Zonghao shouted. Everyone turned pale with fright. Tantai Lingzi hesitated for a moment, then hurriedly turned around and fled from the 7-colored, auspicious cloud. Then Shen Tianlin, Bai Fei Wuyang, and Qin Wu also rushed out. They didn't even have the time to gather any medicinal herbs, because the frenzy blood grass's attack had already arrived. Only Li Zonghao, who was the first to discover the frenzy blood grass, didn't run away. Instead, he squatted on the ground, trying to grab a handful of herbs and leave. Puchi! In just a moment, a green light flashed. Li Zonghao didn't even have time to scream before his head fell to the ground. He was dead. 19 survivors. Ling Xiao didn't run away. He just stood there like a plant, not a person. The mountain river martial spirits model was so powerful. Not only could it hide one's aura, it could also change one's aura. Ling Xiao was still familiar with the ferocious frenzy bloodgrass. Among the terrifying poisonous plants under the heavens, it was definitely one of the best. It was said that no one below the celestial realm could resist it unless they had the antidote. However, the frenzy bloodgrass had a fatal weakness, which was that it didn't have the facial features of a ferocious beast. It judged the enemy entirely by the aura and heat emitted by the human body. Ling Xiao was motionless at this moment. His aura had completely merged with the surrounding flowers and plants. Naturally, the frenzy bloodgrass wouldn't attack him. The frenzy bloodgrass is a late-stage, 9th-level ferocious beast. Under normal circumstances, I'm definitely not its match. Moreover, I can't move. Once I move, even if I have the model, it'll be useless. This guy will automatically lock onto moving things. No matter if it's an insect or a wild beast, everything will be poisoned to death. My strength is at most on par with the blood dragon snake. If I want to get the dragon blood grass, I need to come up with a strategy. Ling Xiao stood there, carefully analyzing the current situation in order to come up with a countermeasure. He didn't run away like Bai Feifei and the others, nor did he act foolishly like Li Zonghao. No matter what the situation was, he could always remain calm and wouldn't make mistakes that he shouldn't make. Even if his body could resist the majority of the poison, the frenzy bloodgrass's poison was too terrifying. He didn't have the confidence to resist it. Moreover, even if the frenzy bloodgrass didn't use poison, just its leaves that were as sharp as treasured artifacts were enough to take a person's life. The frenzy bloodgrass didn't possess any intelligence. It was a low-level creature that only relied on its instincts to fight. Therefore, schemes and plans were useless in front of this thing, because it would be like playing the lute to a cow. However, Ling Xiao had an advantage. That was the sword soul doppelganger. The current Ling Xiao had already condensed 13 sword soul doppelganger. In the eyes of the frenzy bloodgrass, it was simply impossible to distinguish between the real and the fake. He could use the sword soul doppelganger and his superb movement technique to forcefully seize the longevity fruit. There were a total of 5 fruits. Naturally, he would keep one for himself and give one to his grandfather, Hongqi. The remaining 3 would be stored temporarily. In any case, there was no need to worry about them rotting in the Mountain River realm. When the time came, he would give them to whoever needed them the most. His younger brother Ling Luo, his friends Ling Yixue, Cold Plum, Dai Yuling, Lan Yuer, and Yang Danlin might all need them, but they might also not need them. Therefore, he didn't need to make a decision so quickly. The Moon Lady definitely wouldn't need them. She had lived for so many years, so these things shouldn't be of any use to her. His master, the Yuan Venerate, was just a spirit, so he wouldn't need them either. No matter what, these 5 longevity fruits couldn't be wasted. If possible, he would even transplant that tree into the Mountain River realm. This way, he would be able to make use of the 1,000 one-time difference in the Mountain River realm to cultivate longevity fruits. After making up his mind, Ling Xiao suddenly pushed his quintessential origin energy to the maximum and his body pounced forward like a phantom. Whoosh! Whoosh! The moment Ling Xiao moved, the frenzy bloodgrass discovered him. Then 5 or 6 snake-like leaves pounced on Ling Xiao across the air in an attempt to kill him like Li Zonghao. Bang! 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 As he dodged continuously, the leaves of the frenzy blood grass pierced the ground and rocks. Wherever it was pierced, a large area of decay and withering would appear. Even the rocks were no exception. What a waste! Ling Xiao couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the withered herbs. However, he couldn't even protect himself at the moment, so he simply didn't have the time to care about these things. He could only increase his speed continuously. The frenzy blood grass couldn't kill Ling Xiao, so it split off more leaves. I can't dodge it anymore. Sword Soul Clone. Suddenly, Ling Xiao split into 2 Sword Soul Doppelgangers. One of them blocked an attack for him while his main body dashed out. The other Sword Soul Clone attracted the attention of the frenzy blood grass, allowing Ling Xiao's main body the opportunity to flee hundreds of meters away in an instant and reach the longevity fruit tree. Chapter 519. Ling Xiao used the Sword Soul Doppelganger to dodge the frenzy blood grass's attack. Novel! However, the frenzy blood grass reacted quickly. It directly pierced through the remaining Sword Soul Doppelganger. The remaining hundreds of leaves shook at the same time and shot toward Ling Xiao. It was as terrifying as a storm. A level 9 ferocious beast is already troublesome enough. This guy even has poison. How troublesome! Ling Xiao only plucked one longevity fruit and didn't have time to pluck a second one. Continue. Sword Soul Doppelganger. Ling Xiao released 3 more Sword Soul Doppelganger to attract the Frenzy Blood Grass's firepower. His main body secretly hid beside the longevity fruit tree and entered the state of plant aura. The Frenzy Blood Grass should be a monster guarding the herb garden. It might not care about other herbs, but it seemed to be avoiding the longevity fruit tree in its attacks. This gave Ling Xiao the perfect opportunity. Ling Xiao's defense was shocking, and he had the Earth Spirit constitution. However, he did not want to fight a level 9 ferocious beast head-on. Naturally, he had to use the smartest and most energy-efficient way to solve the problem. Seeing that the Frenzy Bloodgrass began to attack the Sword Soul Doppelganger, Ling Xiao finally moved again and put the 2 longevity fruits into his bag. At this time, no matter how fast the Frenzy Bloodgrass was, it would not be able to attack in time. However, at this time, the situation changed unexpectedly. The remaining 2 longevity fruits fell into the hands of another person. This person's speed surprised Ling Xiao. The most terrifying thing was that this guy was decisive and chose the right time to attack. Even if he was prepared, the other party still succeeded. Junior brother Ling, I'll kindly accept these 2 longevity fruits. Ming Tian. The voice came from not far away, but Ling Xiao could not chase after it. When Ming Tian took the fruits and left, he used a secret scroll to leave a wall of flames in the path that Ling Xiao was chasing. The flames reached as high as the top of the rainbow auspicious clouds. It was impossible to pass through. Behind Ling Xiao was the frenzy bloodgrass. Ming Tian, you stole my things and even tried to kill me. You know that you'll have to pay a heavy price for this. Ling Xiao didn't know what had happened to Ming Tian. But in any case, this little brat's strength seemed to have suddenly advanced by leaps and bounds, actually reaching the Transcendent Realm's 7th layer. What was even more puzzling was that the aura released from this fellow was no longer the familiar aura of Ming Tian, but the aura of a ferocious beast. What a terrifying beast! Even so, since Ming Tian dared to snatch his things, he definitely wouldn't let him off. At this moment, it was obviously not too possible for him to exterminate the violent bloodgrass. Thus, he opened his mouth and inhaled. The wall of flames left behind by Ming Tian was actually sucked into his mouth. Then, Ling Xiao aimed at the frenzy bloodgrass and sprayed it. The raging flames were what the frenzy blood grass feared the most, and it actually retreated quite a distance because of this. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ling Xiao uprooted the longevity fruit tree and threw it into the mountain river world. He then sped up and chased after Ming Tian. Ming Tian's speed was very fast, but compared to him, it was still nothing. Cloud Dragon Wonderland, Golden Light Dragon Wings. Ling Xiao used the Golden Light Dragon Wings for the first time in the sect. His speed instantly increased, and he blocked Ming Tian's path in an instant. Ming Tian, hand over the longevity fruit, or I'll kill you. Hearing Ling Xiao's voice, Ming Tian was really shocked. However, after the transformation of his body by Elder Gene, he was now very confident. Ling Xiao wanted to kill him? He didn't believe it. Junior brother, don't be stubborn. You've already gotten 3 longevity fruits, and I've only gotten 2. Let's call it quits. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to kill you. Ming Tian stopped in his tracks and sneered. Nonsense. I've worked so hard to create this opportunity, and you've already taken it. How dare you threaten me? Ling Xiao frowned. The longevity fruit belongs to the virtuous. No matter what method I use to get it, I've already gotten it. Ming Tian said indifferently. Very well. In that case, there's no need to talk nonsense. Go to hell. Reasoning with an unreasonable person was the most foolish thing to do. Therefore, Ling Xiao could only choose to make a move. Moreover, he had long wanted to teach Ming Tian a lesson. However, he felt that he wouldn't die even if he killed someone in the Moonlight Pagoda, and it would be a waste of true essence. Therefore, he didn't do it. However, it seemed that he had no choice now. 9 meridians, Qi sword, 9 swords in one. Ling Xiao suddenly pointed with his right hand, and a thick Qi sword broke through the air. The entire space was torn apart like a piece of paper. Qi sword? It can pierce through space? Looks like you've learned a lot of good stuff. Ming Tian's pupils suddenly shrank. He couldn't dodge in time and directly struck out with his palm. The blood-red demon fox feather coat appeared again, but it was thicker and more flexible than when he was in Tianfeng City. Bang! A blood-red claw appeared on Ming Tian's palm and wrapped his entire body in it. The terrifying Qi sword collided with the blood-red giant claw and emitted a dull boom. True essence sputtered in all directions and fell to the ground and actually started to burn. Ming Tian's figure retreated a few steps and then planted his foot on the ground to stabilize himself. He looked at Ling Xiao with a cold expression and said, "I originally didn't want to waste my strength. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish." In fact, he had the same idea as Ling Xiao. He didn't want to face Ling Xiao here. Killing him was the same as not killing him. Instead, he had to exhaust his true essence. This was definitely not worth it. However, the premise was that Ling Xiao didn't deal with him. However, he had no way out now. Ling Xiao was clearly determined to get back those 2 longevity fruits. "I gave you face, but you didn't want it. If you were obedient, you could still be a genius. But now, don't even think about it." Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Although the 9 meridians Qi sword couldn't kill Ming Tian in one move, it was within his expectations. However, this guy wasn't injured. This was beyond his ability. Could it be that Ming Tian's body had undergone some changes? No matter what changes he had, he would still kill him. "Junior brotherling, I just received Elder Jin's full help and implanted the sacred beast Kyubi into my body. My body and soul are almost 70% merged. Now, I don't have a martial soul, but I'm stronger than people with martial souls." Ming Tian sneered and said, "However, after obtaining this power, I haven't fought with anyone. Since you want to be the first test subject, I won't refuse." Ninja beast fusion? Ling Xiao had heard of an extremely cruel and evil secret technique among the ninjas. It could fuse living beasts with humans, including the fusion of soul and body. 8 out of 10 people who received this kind of secret technique died. The survival rate was extremely low. However, those who survived would become extremely powerful. They would no longer be humans, but half beasts.